Choose carefully what you wear and how you project it. And not to cut you, Sway, but I'm going to be honest with you. When I was 12, 13, 14 years old, for Easter and for Christmas, my mother and my uncles, because my father died when I was young, I got a suit. I was wearing suit from I was 12 years old. So this thing about not everybody can wear a suit, everybody can wear a suit. You don't have to wear a suit every day of your life because may not be your craft on what you do. But every man should be able to own a black suit, a gray suit, or any other color that they might like for themselves. But you definitely must have at least 2 or 3 or 4 suits in your closet that you can go to a upscale affair if you have an invitation to go to such.
I agree with you.
It's not even an upscale. No.
One second.
Like you say, no.
No, it's not even an upscale affair.
Your fate is before you. Choose wisely.
Like I work in finance. God bless, no, it's not by chance. Don't dab me, you're not my man. Don't at me, you're not my man. Mama said don't buy it if you cannot buy it twice. I cop by the tools and I don't pump fake with the price. Always on the grind, I put in work with all my might. I know that he got me, not by sight. I skirt like Venice, I slide out landings. All black like that. Fit 4 days, that's for sure though. Grinding from the grip, no shame, take a photo. Time to take a trip, we head north to the border. Say you filling up, I'm my favorite type of hoarder. I got kids to feed, I got enemies, I got God's gift, so they envy me. Got some friends out Memphis like I'm Aubrey. Got some friends fought for orange like some autumn leaves. I skirt like Venice, I slide out landings. Vito Benji, all black like Batman. I skirt like Venice, I slide out landings. Vito Benji, all black like Batman. All black like Batman. All black like Batman. All black like Batman. All black like Batman.
Money line, I'ma run it every time. Give me mine, going up, need no decline. Money line, I'ma run it every time. Give me mine, going up, need no decline. Yeah. Why check Castro, yeah, I need my ass. Why check Castro, yeah, I need my money line. Why check Castro, yeah, I need my money line. Why check Castro, yeah, I need my money line. Watch out for those who surround you, need no funny kind. You can't see what's on my brain, I live inside my mind. Out of space and out of sight, you need me in my line. Need no face, don't need no phonies, no. Need no snakes, no only homies down for show. On go. Get a book and get the front end, we load up and roll. I got kids, yeah, I got staff, I make a little need more. I sell records, you sell packs, not on my level, no. I'm a pop star, I'm a rock star, I'm a winner. Think I'm not hard, you smoke rock, car waste, man, why you dumb? I'm with airline, we on airlines,
like we on the run. I'm with Tay, girls run up on me. They done.
Money line, I'ma run it every time. Give me mine, going up, need no decline. Money line, I'ma run it every time. Give me mine, going up, need no decline.
Yeah. Why check Castro, yeah, I need my ass. Why check Castro, yeah, I need my
Money line,
Why check Castro, yeah, I need my
money line.
Why check Castro, yeah, I need my
Ma jolie, oh ma jolie. Ah yeah, eh. Every time I come around you, baby girl, something doesn't feel the same. You said that I'm changing, but it's really you. I see how you play those games. Wifey type for a maid man. A queen can make moves, a king can. Snatch you up, now you taking. Gave you bricks, now you building a wall up, wall up. Lately you and I've been all love, all love. I don't know what's up with our love, you forgetting all about us, oh. My jolie, oh my jolie, where are you? When I need you the most, you still MIA. This is murder, heart is melting, girl you got me. Called your bluffing, made you something, now you talking. Telling me to cool it off, how can I cool it off, telling me to cool it off, how can I cool it off, my jolie, oh my jolie, my jolie, oh my jolie. You don't turn on me now, you don't get no time for me now, babe. Got him on a rebound, but it's only you that I like, babe. Tout ce que j'ai fait c'était pour toi. Sur le haut parle mais t'écoutes pas. Tu me vois crever mais tu bouges pas. Pourquoi? Whoa, yo, wall up, you can't even get the scars up. For us, I don't know what's up with our love, you forgetting all about us, oh. My jolie, oh my jolie, where you been? When I need you the most, you still MIA. This is murder, heart is melting, girl you got me. This is called your bluffing, made you something, now you talking. I call you bluff. You telling me to cool it off, how can I cool it off, telling me to cool it off, how can I cool it off, my jolie, oh my jolie. Girl, you got me. Called your bluffing, made you something, now you talking. Telling me to cool it off, how can I cool it off, telling me to cool it off, how can I cool it off, I don't know how to cool it off. My jolie, oh my jolie.
I've really been addicted to you. All of my attention I've been giving to you. Caught up in my feelings, I got feelings for you. Caught up in my feelings, I got feelings for you. On my mind, I can't lie. On my mind, I can't lie. Hold you down till you dry. Hold you down till you dry. All the time, ease my mind. All the time, ease my mind. I know that you're dangerous, I'm addicted to you. I might rent the Lambo and go drive it like it's stolen. I've been living wild, I'm just going through the motions. Stumbling out the Uber, grabbed my hand, gave me the notion. Swimming in your water, but it feels just like the ocean. I can't lie, I've really been addicted to you. All of my attention I've been giving to you. Caught up in my feelings, I got feelings for you. Caught up in my feelings, I got feelings for you. On my mind, I can't lie. On my mind, I can't lie. Hold you down till you dry. Hold you down till you dry. All the time, ease my mind. All the time, ease my mind. I was sipping more for 2 years straight to the face. Champagne belly bubble still won't go away. Last year my best man hit a stain with bad face. Now he's got a hell beyond the water's cold case. I wake up with pain sometime and never go away. Wonder why I bow down to my knees when I pray. In my city gritty, gotta keep it on your waist, or you might be a victim, they'll find you DOA. I can't lie, I've really been addicted to you. All of my attention I've been giving to you. Caught up in my feelings, I got feelings for you. Caught up in my feelings, I got feelings for you. On my mind, I can't lie. On my mind, I can't lie. Pull you down till you dry. Pull you down till you dry. All the time, he's my mind. All the time, he's my mind. I know that you're dangerous, I'm addicted to you.
In this episode of the Manhood Chronicles, we will be exploring the show that I did with Sage Talk with Lee. And also, there was special guest Kevin Samuels on the show as we talked about the importance of black male image and if black male image was necessary when it came down to wearing suits. In this show, Kevin Samuels had what some would call a somewhat contentious debate with what I call a xenia or the youth about the importance of male dress, male image, and also suits. But from this show and from this episode of the Manhood Chronicles, what did you get from the conversation between Sway and also the conversation between Kevin Samuels? Is there a disconnect between the youth in these current times that we live in? Do the elders clearly understand how to communicate with the youth? Are the elders too rigid in trying to communicate with the youth? Are the youth turned off by elders because they're not used to masculine men? Do the youth often many times reduce what elders are saying because they have not lived the experience, and many have not seen masculine fathers in their home, schools, and or communities? Sit back, relax, and enjoy this show as I bring it to you live from the greatest state in the union, the Tar Heel State. And I need you guys to remember this as we talk about the importance of the male image and also male dress. If it ain't selling, it ain't kosher. If it ain't kosher, it ain't right. Is male dress paramount to understanding what men need to become better in these turbulent times? You decide. Guys, we're about to start as I'm about to drop some fire for your mind. I'm going to drop
fire for your mind
on today, brothers.
The Kosher
and the ladies
Clinician.
Listening, because we're going to talk about the black male image and the importance of the black male image as it relates to how we're seen in societies. Get your pens and your papers ready. Let's get it. Bringing it to you live once again from the greatest state in the union, the Tar Heel State, where the topography is serene, pristine, and verdant green, where every day is Father's Day, and where manhood is part of hills and valleys, victories and failures, and whereas men, we don't agree on all things or ideologies, but tonight we come together as allies of a common cause, only to dissipate once the crisis is over. Now listen, I'm about to drop some fire for your mind. But before I drop that fire, let's explore why we are doing the Manhood Chronicles. All right, guys, we're going to have a powerful conversation on today. And we're going to be talking about the importance, guys. If you can hear me, hit the one button, because many times some of the brothers say they can't hear me. And I got all this equipment, and, it's hard trying to moderate and talking to you guys at the same time. But if you can hear me, hit one. And we're going to talk about the importance of the black male image. And was Kevin Samuels right in more or less trying to convey to the young man, Sway, in the morning about the importance of male image and the importance of suits? Or was Kevin Samuels a little bit too cantankerous, and could he have came at the young man with a different level of decorum or grace? And we're going to have a conversation because there appears to be a generation gap between the young people in America and also between the elders. It appears to be some type of a chasm, a gap that needs to be closed if we're going to more or less improve the image of black men and all men in America. Now, I told you guys before in the past that manhood appears to be under attack. And men have not been given or seen or had the proper socialization that can help them get the proper outcomes that they need in these very difficult times. Some will argue that suits are very important to the image of the black man, that every black man should have several suits and he should wear those suits to improve his image. My dear friend Ty Maynard Cutler, we talked about the importance of image and being dusty. Then some will argue that black men should dress down and have penny loafers and be business casual. But then some argue that we definitely should get rid of all the time, not sometime, because I believe a man can wear a hoodie or a baseball cap or just relaxed gear. I'm not against that. But some feel that relaxed gear is too all common in how black men project or present themselves. And then some will argue that they don't need suits because their profession does not more or less dictate it. But the conversation is important, guys, because, there's a crisis in masculinity. And until we have these conversations with the young men, can we have a more stable union as it relates to helping our young men become the better version of themselves? Because there is a level of psychology, guys, associated with the male image. When you dress for success, you tend to feel better. It improves your mental clarity. It helps others see you in a different light. It can improve your self-esteem when you put on a nice decorum. Once again, I'm not saying you got to wear a suit all the time. I'm not saying that. But I do believe that young men and all men should have several suits in their arsenal to more or less wear those suits on different occasions as it relates to presenting themselves in a very respectful and responsible way. But the question remains, once again, there's a disconnect. And we're going to talk about generation gap. And I'm not going to be before you guys long because I got to get to the office at some point. But we're going to talk about what a generation gap is, guys. And we're going to look at that clip at some point. And we're going to more or less compare and contrast the evidence because different people got different views about it. So the question remains is this: generation gap. So a generation gap is a difference of opinion between one generation and another generation regarding beliefs, politics, or values. In today's usage, generation gap often is referred to the perceived gap that younger people and their grandparents or grandparents have. And every generation will say that their generation was better than the current generation. But we can argue and more or less say that at no time have a generation been at a rate where black boys and white boys and men in general are raised in homes where there are not men in the family. We've always had issues with men and women and communities, but we've never had, not to my knowledge, a time in human history where nearly 80% of children are being born in single-parent homes. And when you take kids away from having their fathers, that leaves a void, guys, in their psyche and how they should conduct themselves in the broader society. So these questions remain if there's a generation gap. Are millennials and zennials clearly connected to how we think? Do they understand how we think? Are they willing to understand how we think? And hold tight, guys. This stupid phone is ringing. But And if they're not willing to understand how we think, is it due to them not having male fathers? So we're going to have a conversation about it, guys, because these conversations are very important. And because until we have these conversations in heteronormative masculinity, we're not going to get the results that we need. I'm going to look at a clip also talking about the difference between Xennials and some of the characteristics of Xennials. Because Xennials have different characteristics just like millennials. A Xennial is a member of an age group born after Generation X and before the millennial generation, specifically the late 1970s and the early 1980s. Xennials grew up in a time when they had power, they had landlines, phones used to organize with everything. So Xennials are the micro-generation people on the cusp of Generation X and the millennials. And so, Xennials are a different generation. They're like between millennials and Gen X's. And, there are differences between millennials and Xennials. Millennials are born between 1981 and 1996. Gen X is official. I'm a Gen X, those born between 1965 and 1980. We were the time when you had the high top fade and all the different things. But there appears to be a great chasm between how we respond to one another. And that great chasm is causing a lot of issues and trying to form a more perfect union. And, some would say that the younger generation is very disrespectful of their elders because they have not seen structure, they have not seen order. Many of the boys are very emotional. And what they are saying is that the same tutelage that the elders now are giving the younger generation, that was just the norm. You disrespect the elders and deferred and gave them respect because that was an understandable thing. Now watch this. We're not saying that all older people know everything. We're not saying that elders are always right. There are some old fools. Just because you're older does not necessarily mean that you're always right. But then there are some young fools too. And it appears that there's a greater variant of younger fools than old fools. Because the gospel says that in the multitude of counselors, guys, there's safety. There's safety in the counsel of wisdom and elders. And Sage Talk with Lee and I, we talked about that, and Kevin Samuels was on the platform when I was on the platform on the Lapeef Network, and we all had a very poignant conversation. Now listen, guys, these conversations are very important. I am a male advocate specialist. I believe in the advocacy of black men and all men. Some of my white listeners think that I'm only for black men, but I'm not. I'm from all men. But I do have a special place in my heart for men of color because of what they've been through. There's a war on masculinity. And the image of the man plays a major role in how we see ourselves from a psychological perspective. If you want to project power in the... But do we value men conducting themselves in a positive way? Do we value swag over conducting yourself in a professional way? Because we talk about the educated lanes. The men that the women overlooked in their 20s, they chose swag, they chose J's, they chose dreads, they chose fitted hats. They chose that over the quality men now, as they had their fun, now they want a good man. And so some of those men now were the guys that were reading books, they were applying themselves, and now these guys are making money, they're traveling, they got their game up, but they were called the educated lames. And I'm not here to necessarily start a war between, what they call Pookies or Raekwon and Man versus, the educated, but I'm not here for that. I'm just here to pose a question. Is there a generation gap between millennials, Xennials, and boomers? Was Kevin Samuels right in his prognostication about how men should conduct themselves and how we should project power in the broader world? Or was he right in his message, but he was wrong in his delivery and tone? Was Sway wrong? Did Sway overreact? And so I've got mixed reviews on it. But the question remains is that in these Manhood Chronicles where we talk about the stories of men, we need to have the conversation about the importance of image. Because until we have a conversation about it, we're going to continue to go down this downward spiral where nothing gets accomplished. Some feel that the community is done. Some feel that we can still save it, but it's going to take work. But then there are some that are nihilists. They believe that it's done, we should let it burn down and rebuild a whole new community. But that's neither here nor there. And in these conversations, you hear a lot of the younger men call the older brothers old M-words, old ninjas, which I find to be very disrespectful. Because I do agree with the younger generation that the old elders don't always know things, but we came before you. We laid the foundation that a lot of the younger people have today. We sacrificed, we labored, we suffered. We didn't have all the accoutrements that the younger generation have. So there's some wisdom and value that we survived to get to the age that we've gotten to. And it's very disrespectful to call those that came before you old ninjas, because they do it to the women as well, the older women. And don't get it twisted. Gen X made some mistakes. Every generation have made mistakes. But at the same time, could it be argued that the negativity on how Gen X is raised the current generation is the reason why the millennials and the zennials are the way they are now? That could be a good question to ask. But we're going to have a broader conversation, guys, because these questions are very important. We need to have these conversations. Guys, get the likes up. If you have not donated, donate to the channel, because we're going to have a powerful conversation. Is there a generation gap between elders and the youth about image? If you don't have any money, as I always say, guys, share this content. Share this content with at least 5 people that think just like you, because we need to have these conversations about the youth and elders. And also we're going to talk about if Kevin Samuels was right or wrong, or was Sway in the morning right or wrong. But when you men hear the younger men call you old ninjas, how does that make you feel as a man? Is it very disrespectful? I want you guys to hit 1 if they call you old ninjas. Because, some would say it's very disrespectful that the younger generation called the older brothers these old ninjas, because some will argue that the communities were a lot better in the past. But some will say that the lack of direction by Gen X caused the young people to be who they are now. But then some also will argue that the millennials and zennials are very entitled. They don't have a work ethic. They don't want to put in work. They think they're supposed to get anything that they want. And because of that, they tend to quit easy because they're not mentally tough. There are many layers to this argument, guys, that we can have. And I need your guys' insight in how to break down and deconstruct this conversation that I was on when I was on the Lapeef Network. So once again, guys, get the likes up. Share the content. If you have not donated, donate to Cash App $7 Smalls. And also, let's have a conversation, because we're living in times where our communities are at a state of disrepair. But I want to ask you guys a question. Do you feel that because these young men don't have, how can I say it? These young men don't have fathers in the home, masculine men in the home, that they don't know what masculinity look like. And so when men like Kevin Samuels do come to give correction, that many times they can't receive it. Now, some men will say, I'm a grown man. You're not going to talk to me in the kind of way. I don't care if you are elder. So who's right, who's wrong? Is there a fine balance between how you conduct yourself? Did Kevin give him a level of grace and decorum where he could more or less articulate his position? And once again, guys, these conversations are very important as we move forward, because we need a more stronger and we need a vibrant community. At some point, I want the millennials and the zennials to come on and talk about the importance of image. But also, I want the millennials and zennials to come on to talk about how they perceive this conversation with Kevin and how they perceive it from Sway in the morning, the young man with the circle around him in the arrow. And shout out to Sway. I'm not here to attack Sway. I'm just here to have a conversation. Because many times on these shows, people will run and say, oh, he was talking. No, I'm not talking about anybody. I'm just here to have a conversation and to get clarity on the psychodynamics associated with dress and how dress impacts the efficacy of our communities. So I'm going to, upload the clip in a minute. But I had a show at one point. With my man Ty Maynard Cutner. And let me see if I can find that. I had something with my man Ty, and Ty and I did something about being dusty. And some will say that the image of the black man is dusty. I worked in law enforcement, and they tend, and some say they swag too much, Some say they swag too much. I mean, sag. Many don't like sagging. Some say that their professional decorum is off. Some will argue that we don't project what we need to project like our ancestors projected years ago. There was a time where the black male image was very clean cut. Kevin's argument was that we were able to get things done on the George Pettis Bridge because even though we were enslaved mentally and socially with redlining and Jim Crow racism, we still conducted ourselves, the men and the women, in a manner that when we came before the masses respected us when we were on the news. But how can the masses respect us on the news when some of our women are wearing bonnets? Some of our women are wearing flip-flops and they're wearing pajamas. Our men are always wearing J's and fitted caps and hoodies. How can we project an image of professionalism and an image of success? Because people will judge you based on how you dress, your enunciation, also your vernacular. So I think Kevin is right in many ways. Some might say they didn't agree with how he came off, but I think the black image definitely needs to be repolished to a degree. As I said earlier, I'm not saying 100% you got to wear suits all the time. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that you can't wear nice clothes off from time to time. Relaxed clothes from time to time, like jeans, hoodies, and a fitted cap. I'm not saying that as well. But overall, we tend to have the latter than having the former. And I think that's the question that's causing a lot of issues, but also a lot of consternation with some of the elders. Some of the elders are saying this, and some of the elders are dusty themselves. You got some men in their 40s and 50s that's damn still dusty. They don't conduct themselves like professional men. They still wearing cornrows. You got 50-year-old men with cornrows and baggy pants and baggy jeans. You're an older man now. Conduct yourself like a man of wisdom. Conduct yourself like you're a man that's going somewhere. This was a show that I did with my man Ty, and then I'm going to do the clip with my man Kevin Simmons, and then we're going to talk about it. Hold tight, guys. Let me get this clip if I can find it. And we're going to talk about it. Give me 1 minute. So that question from that show was, can dress improve the mental health of a man? I think it can improve the mental health of a man. So let's look at this real quick, a little bit of it. And to demand what they want in a relationship. And they have adequate dressing can more or less raise the vibration of a man in his social realm and also in his psychological realm. So shout out to my young lion. I call him a quarter lion. He got 3/4 Leo. He ain't got that swag like me, but I'm gonna bring him on anyway. I'm gonna let him get some of that. I'm gonna let him get some of that fire for your mind.
Fire for your mind. The Kosher.
Shout out to my homie.
Clinician.
I call him the young lion. Ty Maynard Cutler got that Leo swag like me. Ty, introduce yourself.
What's going on?
To the audience, man, and tell them why. We're gonna talk about your Patreon. We're gonna talk about a lot of different things, but tell the audience why it's so important for men to focus on themselves, but also for men to have good dressing and good dressing standards. And also, in this loaded question, what is the evolution of Ty Maynard Cutler?
Yes, so thank you for having me on, Kosher. For those who don't know, I'm Ty Cutner, image coach, also a relationship coach. I teach men how to improve their image so they can gain the things they want in life. Also help guys who are going through relationship issues, divorce, cheating, separation, things like that. I started with myself. I was at a position in life several years ago where I was a bus driver, job I didn't really want. I was in a relationship that I wasn't being treated well. Found out that the girl was cheating on me. And then I looked at my life and said, that wasn't the only thing that was messed up. There was other things messed up in my life that I allowed to happen. I was just one of them. And one of the ways that I was feeling myself in my life was how I was presenting myself to the world. At the time, I'm saying that I'm an entrepreneur, that I'm trying to be an entrepreneur. I'm smart, I have great ideas, I have some accomplishments. But when I present myself like if I just got out of college, wearing jeans, sneakers, t-shirts. I can't be around other serious men dressed like that. They're not going to respect my words. I didn't respect my words. If I did, I wouldn't present myself in that way. And so once I started to improve how I dress, I said to myself, I need to dress like a man. And when I did that, my life changed instantly because I seen a better person. I seen my limits for what I thought I can achieve, they erased. And now I was able to go for better things. And just like that, just for me trying to go for better things, I got better things in life. You know, and now I teach men how to improve their image in a way where it's basically like a superpower. You know, I teach them how to dress well, and then I teach them how to use that to their advantage.
What is a prize to Tommy Cutler? What does it mean to have a prize in your life? What is a prize to you?
Well, generally speaking, prize is something that's giving me value in life, right? I can look to it and I can say that is in my life and it's giving me these benefits. You know, when it comes to women being a prize in my life, I've had the luxury of experiencing a woman or what a woman can do in a man's life beyond the obvious, right? Beyond the sexual companion that
we're not gonna get too much into that. That was just more or less a show that I did with Ty, but I'm gonna do the real part that I wanted to talk about. The part that I had, we were talking about Kevin Samuels. That's the main point, and I'm gonna put that video up, and we're gonna break that video down because that video is more important. I was on the Lapeef Network, and Kevin popped on when I was with Sage Lee. So that's the main one that I want to talk about. So give me a minute, guys. We're gonna bring that one up, that particular show up. Give me 1 minute, and we're gonna attack it head on because some of you guys want to compare and contrast from that show that I was on, and I was up there with Kevin Samuels, and we're talking about the image of the black man. We're talking about the image of the black man, and some will argue that the image of the black man has diminished and the image of all men have diminished. And this was the young brother Sway in the morning. You know, shout out to Sway. I'm not here to attack Sway because some would say that Kevin's message was right, but then they would say his delivery was off-putting. Some would say that Sway was right, but then some would say that Sway got too much in his feelings. I want you guys to break it down. I was sitting back trying to, digest it and formulate my own opinion. So let's look at it, guys.
What you wear and how you project it. And not to cut you, Sway, but I'm going to be honest with you. When I was 12, 13, 14 years old, for Easter and for Christmas, my mother and my uncles, because my father died when I was young, I got a suit. I was wearing a suit from I was 12 years old. So this thing about not everybody can wear a suit, everybody can wear a suit. You don't have to wear a suit every day of your life because may not be your craft on what you do. But every man should be able to own a black suit.
So what's your guys' take on that? Should every man own a suit? If you believe that every man should at least have a suit or several suits in his arsenal for a specific time, I want you guys to hit the one button. To the 41 people that are watching, you guys have not shared the content. I need at least 5 people to share this content. Share it with the young men. We need to get this message out, guys. Share it with the young men. If you have not donated, guys, donate to the channel. Donate to the channel. And also donate by hitting Cash App $7 small. So let's get back into the conversation. And once again, guys, thank you for watching as we talk about the importance of the black male image. Thank you, guys.
A gray suit or any other color that they might like for themselves, but you definitely must have at least 2 or 3 or 4 suits in your closet that you can go to a upscale affair if you have an invitation to
Of
go
course.
to such.
I agree with you.
It's not even an upscale. No.
One second.
No.
Like
You say no?
like Kevin,
No, it's not even an upscale affair. See,
So this was the point where they felt like, there could have been a greater level of decorum between Kevin and Sway. And so Sway at this point appears to be agitated and not heard, and he felt like he was being overtalked. Was Kevin right or was Kevin wrong? Or did Sway get too emotional? Keep listening.
first of all, hey everybody, how you doing?
How you doing, Kevin?
How you doing, Kevin? Sway, how old are you? So I'll know who I'm talking to.
I'm 23.
All right. So if you went into, if you went in and you were up on murder charges and you had an attorney, would you listen to his advice or would you go on what you think?
I will listen to my attorney's advice.
All right. Well, as a professional image consultant who actually gets paid to do this, everything you were saying is what's wrong with the black male image. And I can produce any data that anyone wants with links to where young Black men have done the own work of trying to see how differently they were treated by simply just dressing male appropriate. We have been in our community.
Now, I agree with that. I agree with what Kevin is saying about male appropriate. Now, he got to ask himself the question, does that mean wearing a pair of jeans, slacks, and a blazer with a top, you know? Or does he mean wearing a full formal suit? Or does he mean, having semi-formal wear or whatever? But on that basic premise, I agree with Kevin Samuels 100%. Your dress can improve your image. Does it have to be a full suit? That's the question. Keep listening.
I guarantee you this. I'm 52 years old. I grew up in the projects, single parent household, government cheese. If you want to match being broke, we missed legitimate meals. This generation, no offense, but y'all ain't missing no meals. And y'all talk this, we ain't got it shit like you ain't got it. And I had suits. I was made to dress appropriate because when we were younger as Black people, we still had the church. And we had at least one place.
He's correct. I agree with that part. Suits were very important for the image of the Black community, and the church was very important as well. And I think that's the big disconnect with Zennials and Millennials. Some will argue they don't know what suffering is compared to the current generation. They have not been through what the current generation has been through. And because of that, their value systems are different. Keep listening.
Place to go every week to where we looked good. One. And this has been since the turn of the last century. So miss me with this ghetto broke bullshit. Miss me with they did it in the 50s and 60s and still got lynched bullshit. That is revisionist history. If they had been on the Edmund Pettus Bridge with fucking fitted caps, Jordans, t-shirts, tattoos and shit, no one in the world would have mobilized to stand with us because they wouldn't recognize us like they don't today. Miss me with this, well, these young guys do it when you grow up.
I agree with that as well. I think he's correct overall as it relates to having a corporate and a more or less unified image is where it's dressed. Can you imagine, there's a percentage of the media that already judge Black men and Black women, and they form an opinion about us as people. But it all appears that all too often, some of our people tend to project, the baseball hat, the fitted caps, and the low-hanging jeans more so than occasionally mixing it in with their wardrobe. And I think what he's trying to say is that the broader culture, the broader part of the Black culture tends to project the latter instead of the former, meaning, fitted caps, Jordans, J's, and all of that. And we don't see the formal wear more often than we see, the latter. And once again, we're not saying you got to wear a suit every day. I'm not saying that, but we're saying that many times you tend to see, sports gear versus a professional decorum or a semi-formal decorum that more or less projects a level of professionalism that can keep us in a positive light.
No, you do it now because your life is more at risk now. And you don't know what you're talking about. And this is the same issue I have been arguing with the Black men on YouTube for the past 6 years. We are the only group of men that fight for our right to fail. It has not a matter of education. This is a matter of Black male ego. And you don't want to have to assimilate. You'll look to anything you want to. White boys don't have to cut their hair. Yes, they do. You don't see your managers with mohawks and arm sleeves. Well, and if you want to give me the anecdotal, you sound just as foolish as the women you guys like me banging on. Looking for the anecdotal and the extraneous. It is time for Black men to understand one thing and one thing alone. Your image is what was taken from you. D.W. Griffith's Birth of a Nation. This stuff has been well analyzed. It was taken from you by white America in Birth of a Nation in 1915. And in the 80s, it was ripped from you by Alice Walker in The Color Purple. And you've been fighting an image battle for the longest, young man. It's been going on before you were even alive. Be lucky that Cops isn't still on TV. Because when you leave this country, people think that we are, they don't know, they don't believe the Cosby Show exists. They believe we are NBA young boys. And that ethnic image of that one street ethnic image goes with you everywhere. And it don't matter how nice you are. It don't matter all the shit y'all want to matter. And my last point is be prepared to change your mind because it ain't working. There is no logical business, there's no logical outcome-minded reason to continue to fight this shit. This is about your ego. And for a lot of Black men, this is the last bit of power they feel like they have. It's Kunta Kinte and Toby and Roots, but you ain't Kunta Kinte, you ain't Toby, and this ain't Roots.
I've got most of my grays down my beard area. On the side here, this is the
Roots. You got a goddamn choice in how you look in this world.
Thank you very much for that.
So, guys, based on what you heard by Kevin, I want you to hit 1 if you feel like overall what he's saying was correct. I want you to hit 2 if you feel like Sway was correct. Let's finish the conversation.
Eloquently stated.
Am I free to respond to Lee and Kevin?
1 second. 1 second, sure. What I will say is that there is a change coming. And there are men who will get on board with this change, and there are men who will resist it. And whatever camp you're in, that's fine. But the change of the image of the Black man will take place because the change that the image that we have now is destructive. It's destructive across the board. Go ahead, Sway.
I mean, I just love how I know maybe I didn't articulate myself pretty well because I was rushing through it, but I was never against suits. I was never against, that narrative that Black men should wear suits. I just understand that to wear a suit every day, all day as your own attire isn't for everybody. I agree that we should own suits and we should have them for the time and the place, and you should be able to look respectable at any time.
Let me have to inject. Okay, I didn't say a suit every day. I said when I went to church. See, that's disingenuous, my friend.
Hold on.
Hold on.
You interrupted
I want to
me.
be clear.
I wanted to clear myself up, and I allowed you to talk.
You can, but you're not going to misstate what I said. And see, this is the problem.
What I said.
Okay, and this is the overall problem with image. See, we got a 23-year-old young man, and then a Black man who is an actual image consultant, and you're wanting to argue. It's really not an argument.
I'm not arguing with you. You haven't let me finish.
Well, because you really, no offense, but what have you lived to show what you're talking about works?
What do you think my narrative that I'm pushing?
So I see that some of you guys are saying that he didn't let the young man get his point out. And I want you guys to talk about how you would have handled it better should the young man have had the opportunity to speak his own position, free or interrupt, because Kevin makes some good points. But then some could argue that, they didn't get to hear what Sway was talking about. So keep listening.
Kevin, because honestly, you haven't let me.
What it sounds the same is that, hey, don't wear suits.
Nope.
Dress.
You interrupted me. I'm not trying to argue either, Cass, but you're misrepresenting what I'm saying.
Anybody can listen to the replay. Yes. And at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter because here's the problem. What I started to say at the beginning was if you sat down with an attorney and your life was on the line, you would listen. This is what we do. And there's an image that's going to change with Black men, and it's not about a suit. Suit is what gets put over on the side, just like high value men. It's not. It's something to hit at. But at the end of the day, there's an image of the Black men in the public and then in our mind's eye. But there's also the respect between generations. We're the one group of people that feel like we're all equal. and feel like your opinion versus my lived reality, facts, data, statistics, and experience, and we feel like we both men. And that's the problem. We resist hierarchy. We resist structure. And this is the issue with the black male image, and the symbolism of it is a suit. I've been at this for, I'm not trying to be offensive, young man, but I've been at this for longer than you've been alive. So it's not about a suit. It's about the fact when we walk out in the world, we do not get the respect we should. And we have to take advantage of our own image, which is not just appearance. It's A, B, C, D. Appearance, behavior, communication, and digital footprint. It all matters to image. It's not just about appearance. Now, you may not know who I am. You may not be familiar with my content other than the salacious stuff, but this is what I've been doing in real life for almost a decade as a business. And we are the only group of men that I still have to have this rudimentary 2 + 2 = 4 conversation with over and over again, whereas other men are more inclined to look at just the outcome and say, what is going to be effective to get me the outcome I want in the time frame, and not be willing to waste time. You don't have time to waste. That's the point. Men of value, really successful men, will tell you the most valuable thing they have is time. That's why I push back when I heard you say later on in life, but when you're young, do A, B, and C. No, you need to do the opposite. When you're older and you got power, then you can choose that. But when you're young and have little or less power, you got to do what you got to do. So y'all can argue it back and forth on your opinion. And if y'all want to know more about image, go actually study image, not just appearance. A, B, C, D, not just looks. Peace out, y'all. Y'all can have it.
I'd like to, Kevin, before you go, I'd like to say something. Well, he left. So, Swag, I would like.
So the brother Jay, he's a former member of the Fruit of Islam. He disagreed with how Kevin came across, and Sway looked like he was a little bit disappointed. Kevin made some excellent points, but some argued that, he didn't show a level of decorum. And we're going to have a conversation. We have the youth to come up, the Gen Xers. I mean, not the Gen Xers, but the millennials and zennials. I'm going to have this show dedicated to you guys about the disconnect between Gen X and also the millennials and the zennials. And guys, who have not donated, donate to the channel and share the content. Thank you.
I'd like to say, can y'all hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
I would like to be able to speak because a lot of people have been putting words in my mouth, and I haven't said any of that, and I haven't had a rebuttal. But it's quite funny to me how he can say that I haven't seen him, or I don't know what he's saying, or I'm misrepresenting what he's saying, or misrepresenting perception. But he misrepresented all my points that I've been making. Never once said you shouldn't wear a suit. Never once said young people shouldn't wear a suit. I never once said you shouldn't own a suit. I never once said you shouldn't worry about the clothes that you wear. I was saying it's more than that. Just like you said, ABC is more than just your clothes. And I think every black man should have a suit. But what I was saying is to wait until you're older. My thing is like the business.
You were being disingenuous when you say wear a suit every day. That is misleading.
I said you shouldn't.
It implies that what we're saying is that all black men got to dress in suit and they got to wear suits all day. That's the seed that you're planting in the ether of the conversation. And I think that's why he checked you on that, because.
But didn't I say every black man should own a suit? Didn't I say the Jordans wasn't? Didn't I say the Jordans wasn't? The
first thing you did was you buffed up against it. That was the first thing you did. And your facial expression did the same.
All right. So, what do you guys think about the conversation? What do you guys think about the conversation? Shout out to Autumn, the network Autumn. He said, hold tight. Hold tight, guys. The Autumn Network said, I'm really enjoying the show, going to support it. But yeah, Kevin Samuels and Sway interaction shows that there's a true disconnect between the generation, not just in the black community, but across other communities.
That's a bet, right? That's a deal, right? That's a deal, right? That's a bet, right? That's a deal, right? That's a deal, right? Got 5 on it.
There's a disconnect. And I'm going to hear you guys' position. I want to hear the young men, the zennials and millennials talk. And I want you guys to talk about how that conversation could be handled differently. So I'm going to drop the link We'll have you guys to call in. And let's have a conversation about this conversation between Sway and Kevin Samuels. I was on Sage Talk on the Lapeef Network, and we were talking about the importance of black male image, the importance of the male image in these turbulent times, but not just black, all men, because there appears to be a generation gap. There appears to be a great disconnect. There appears to be that the elders are not listening to some, but then there appears that the millennials are too entitled and they think they know it all, and many are devoid of masculinity and they've never seen masculine order or authority. So let's have a conversation. Shout out to John Hunt. John Hunt said, need to hear what Sway said that started this dialogue in order to get the full context. Well, yeah, let me go get the see if I can get that full clip. Hold tight. But in the meantime, the link has been dropped, guys, and we're going to have a conversation because these conversations are very important. And I happen to be on the show when Kevin Samuels is on the show, so hold tight. All right. What's up, KP from KC5? How you doing, sir?
Salute, Coach. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. I can hear you, brother.
I think it's very fascinating because, like you said, back in the day, you had church to kind of put you in order to put a suit on for those special occasions or those Sundays or whatnot. And it's very detrimental to us as a society, especially black men, because they have turned even some of these corporate jobs or whatnot into very casual dressing.
Right.
So in a sense, it's almost like dumbing down it. It's just like Kosher, you possibly used to listen to Public Enemy. Mm-hmm. Well, Public Enemy would never be accepted in this genre and era of rap.
Right.
And because of that, it's dumbed down rap.
Right.
So by taking the clothing and making it a certain way, you're allowing people to look at you a certain way and depict you in a certain way. Mm-hmm. And then people will get upset for being depicted in a certain manner.
Right.
So you can't really have it both ways. It's either or.
Right.
It's all that gray area. That's the way they're trying to get people to buy into the gray area.
So do you think what Kevin is saying, that the overall image of black people has been diminished and we need to make a readjustment? Because that's what some are saying. Some are saying
yes, it has.
That the overall image of black men have been been reduced, and I think he was saying that you don't have to wear a suit every day, but we do need to improve our image overall to be more amendable or malleable to the broader community. So what's your take on it? Go ahead.
It has, Kosher, and this is how you know it has, Kosher. I'm going to bring you back to a moment that you have probably recently seen in recent years.
Right.
Being that C-19 happened, most of us has possibly been to a funeral within the last few years. Most of the young people don't wear any clothes that resemble attire for a funeral.
I totally agree.
None of them.
I agree.
So that shows you right there, Coach. It's out of whack.
It's out of whack.
Out of order.
I agree with that. I agree with that. That's a fair point. That's a very fair point.
So if they don't know how to go to a funeral, how do they know how to go to a wedding?
Right. I agree with that. Do you think the lack of family has caused that great chasm?
Yes.
If so, in what way? Explain.
Well, because your father will get the sons in order as far as what they can wear to a funeral or something of that nature, and the mothers would also get the daughters in order. Right. But now you see a freelance opportunity for what you would say harlot type clothing at funerals and weddings. Mm-hmm. And then the men don't dress as if they're going to a funeral or wedding either.
Right. So
it's totally dumbed down. It's like it's no level of respect for anything anymore.
Right. And it appears that it's too casual. You know, some have that.
Yes, way too casual. Right.
It's way too right because you go to funerals now. You know, you go to even the schools. You got young girls wearing bonnets and they're wearing pajamas. They wear pajamas to school now. And,
they do. They wear Crocs, right? They wear Crocs, right? Mm-hmm. So, and Kosher, another one. I'm at a basketball game last night, high school basketball game.
Uh-huh.
You know, the boys always have have team managers, which are girls, right? So I'm at the game. It's probably about 70 degrees here in Kansas City.
Right.
But last week it was freezing.
Right.
So the young ladies on the bench that are team managers, 2 of them out of the 3 had on halter tops, bro.
Right.
Like, how are these young men going to focus on playing basketball when 2 of the team managers got on halter tops?
Mm-hmm.
Like this is unreal. It's really unreal.
Yeah. It's a great disconnect. AJ, how you doing, brother? How would you like to add to the conversation about the importance of image and dress, and then casual observers? I'm gonna let you come in and speak. Go ahead.
Okay, great. I appreciate you letting me on. I got so much I want to say on this topic, but the first thing that I want to speak on is bringing light to what the young brother actually called in to say, it just seems to be totally ignored from the conversation.
Right, go ahead.
While we talk about the suits and we talk about appearance, I think most of us can understand the importance of how you represent yourself and how you appear to other people, right? It has everything to do with how we interact, right? And how other people view you. But the young man called in and said something very important. He said, it's about character.
Mm-hmm.
He said, we need to emphasize character. His whole thing for calling into the show was not to say, don't wear suits or don't wear this or don't wear that. His whole purpose was to call in and say, we need to focus on the inward character. Because let's be honest, when you focus on inward character is going to represent itself on the outward eventually.
Right. That's the excellent point.
To come together.
That's a good point.
Right? Based on how you view life and what you value and what you think is important, you're going to represent that in how you carry yourself and how you dress and how you want other people to view you.
Mm-hmm.
Young men do dress down but it also has to do with that mentality and that character why they dress that way. The young man just talked about, or the guy, he just talked about the women wearing halter tops. They're wearing that particular kind of clothing because of the mentality and the character that they have.
Right.
When you get young men to understand the importance of what's right and what's wrong and how they are to behave and how they are to think about society, relationship, family, all of these different things, it's going to start to matriculate into their dress.
Right.
Young men who want to be more professional, they want to be in professional environments. They're looking for opportunities to be in professional environments. I see young men that I work with, that I come in contact with, look for opportunities to dress up.
Right.
Because of the mindset and the character that they possess. Mm-hmm. And so that young man was calling in to pretty much say, let's discuss that. Because that will solve everything.
Right. That's a fair point.
That was totally missed in the whole conversation, and it got so, to me, out of hand. I do think that Kevin was, he missed a very good opportunity to have a conversation and build with the young man, and instead of berating the young man.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and I think that, and I noticed you on the panel in that discussion too, and you were always cool, calm, and collected. And I think Mr. Lee added more fuel to the fire because, again, you got a young man calling into this show. And I just want to address this point. I just want to say this.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
This is why it's so important and what that conversation says so much. While we can talk about image and we can talk about appearance, who are we trying to get this message to? Who are we trying to get to adopt this mindset of changing the image? It's the young people.
Right.
It's the young people who are still moldable, who we can still teach, who we can still educate, who we can still bring along, those who are willing to have that conversation. And Sway is one of those young men. And we missed the opportunity to be able to have that conversation with that young man instead of just wanting to be right about whether you wear suits or not.
Yeah, I see your point. Right. I see your point. I think, I worked in.
I'm sorry. It was mind blowing.
Right. I worked in law enforcement. I work with kids. I hope my audio is not bad, guys. Can you guys hear me good? Can you guys hear me?
I can hear you good. I can hear you real good.
All right. Hold tight. Shout out to Top Gun for that 5-star.
That's a deal, right? That's a
he said
deal,
you may proceed.
That's a bet, right? That's a deal, right? That's a deal,
shout out to Miss Parker, Back to Basics. She said, paying my dues, love the content, Casey. Thank you, sweetie. Love you as well. I want Casual Observer to pop on real quick. He got to go. But Casual Observer, I want you to add to the conversation. Go ahead, brother.
Hey, what's up? Can you hear me well?
Yes, sir. I can hear you. Go ahead, sir.
My take on this situation is, we know what dysfunctional we know the dysfunctional community behaviors that we have in our community, and I feel as though every time we attempt to discuss the issue of presentation and why it matters, you're always going to have that subset of men who are going to to go about undermining what needs to be done in any way possible.
Right.
So if regardless of how I don't necessarily agree with the way in which Kevin Samuels presented it,
Right.
but just in my personal experience, just going about discussing this topic, even like the idea that character should matter. Obviously, it goes without saying that character. It goes without saying that character matters, but the reason why that's being why character even came up was as a means of trying to undermine what the issue is, which is just generally speaking, we don't present ourselves the way we need to as a community,
Right.
and that's reflected in like obviously the Pookie archetype, where you have folks speaking in triple negatives now. It's gotten to be so absurd that you hear people saying things like everybody can't do this, or rather than typically if you're illiterate or you struggle with literacy, you may struggle with their apostrophe e, their possessive and things of that nature.
Right.
But now you hear things like it. So it's not necessarily just even about the suit thing. Is Kevin Samuel's point is the way you speak, the way you dress, the way you carry yourself has a great bearing on the way people are going to treat you and the kinds of opportunities you're going to have in life.
I agree with
also,
that.
it's going to affect your ability to do what you need to do in order to get your goals accomplished in life. But we have a small subset of people where, not small, a large subset of people where no matter how it is that the idea is discussed, it's going to turn into, well, character matters too, which that goes without saying. It's going to turn into, well, we should have our own fashion. We should have our own suit brands. Well, do I have to wear a suit every day, or just things of that nature? Last thing I'll say is I had a discussion before about even casual clothing. The way we dress casually differs a lot from the way other people dress casually. In my personal experience, a lot of us dress in a manner that's age inappropriate. And Kevin Samuel's point isn't necessarily that you should walk around in a suit and tie every day like you're going to a wedding. Kevin
Right.
Samuel's point is like get away from like the age inappropriate shoes, get away from the super
Right.
baggy
Right.
clothing, and get away from like dressing like just in a manner that's not going to give you the presentation that commands respect as a man in this world. And regardless of how you say it, people are going to try to spin it in either way because they just don't want that topic to be discussed. Thank you.
Do you think the black image overall regarding black men is marred? Do you think it's too many middle-aged and younger men wearing the fitted hats, and they don't have enough suits in their arsenal, which is necessary to improve your overall image? What's your take on that, casual observer?
On the suit topic specifically, many men, they're like, because marriage is like obviously like very uncommon in our community, and funerals, like you may not necessarily need to go to a funeral, and obviously your weight's going to shift, so having a suit may be impractical. I speak more to like what the intent was behind the message, which is, in my personal experience, just commuting to work, going to the mall, things of this nature. We have a lot of men who go into their late 30s, and they want to dress in a manner that's very immature. Other men are also dressed casual, but they're dressed casual in an age in an age appropriate way. They're
I
not
see your
dressed like
point.
little boys and things of this nature.
Right.
And
I see your
like,
point.
and it also goes to the speaking as well too. But then sometimes, if you, regardless of how you explain it, then the topic's going to be like, oh well, what is age? What is age appropriate? Well, what is a proper way of speaking?
Right.
Do you want me to speak like a college professor? It's always going to be taken to the extreme. The argument is always going to be deflected in some way, and I do believe that on some level, the folks that are doing this are very consciously aware of the fact that they're trying to undermine the topic. And although I don't agree with the way Kevin treated this particular like a young man that came on the show, the idea that you would even ask, what about character, as though Kevin doesn't know that character also matters, is a bit disingenuous. So are like obviously when people go into like the Mark Zuckerbergs coming in casual and things of this nature, that just turns like a lot of the time the topic just devolves into silly talk, so that we don't kind of orient ourselves to do the things that we ought to be doing.
Excellent point. Let me read what Mixo Universe said. He said, you're not going to get anywhere cutting off millennials, whether you're right or wrong. Gen X is not learning anything from boomers doing the exact same thing. Hold tight. Then what the fuck? I want you to add your point. Hold tight. Clement Gray said that Coach Clinician Kevin Samuels was out of pocket on this one. Whole different way to address a young man. And that's coming from a Gen Xer. And I see your point. I think Kevin could have came in and gave him a little bit more grace. Even if he was right with his overall message. I think his overall message was on point. But the way he came at the young man, he cut him off several times. He didn't let him talk. And I think Kevin could have done a better job overall using a level of diplomacy. I know Kevin's very passionate about what he believes in. I respect Kevin Samuels. Shout out to him. But this generation of kids are different. If you come at them in a way where you're not being diplomatic and trying to understand them, they're not going to give you the same thing that we're used to getting. Because I came from a time where there were elders and there was a community. There is no community with young folks anymore. So they're not socialized the same way we were socialized back in the day. I'm from class of 90. I'm a Gen Xer. We had community and we had elders, but you don't have it as much now. Go ahead, brother.
I'm going to say one more thing before I hop off. For many of us, there is no proper way of saying the right message. I think what Kevin Samuels has done by not going about communicating the way that he did is he's just given people an out. A lot of us just aren't interested in having the conversation. A lot of us don't want to change. And this topic is going to devolve to what about Kevin Samuels? And I'm also in the same boat as Kevin Samuels, where I'm extremely frustrated just observing some of their own self-defeating kind of behaviors day in, day out, and seeing others get ahead. And if folks want to argue about you want to go into corporate America with like dreadlocks, tattoos, pants sagging, things of this nature, or that's the way you want to go into the world, you want to go into designer stores like Jim Jones, yelling, carrying yourselves in a manner men of other communities just don't carry themselves that way, and you want to debate about whether or not that's right or wrong. You could continue doing that, but I'm also not going to go to the extreme where I say very self-deprecating things about Black people. I'm just going to stick to just stating the message that, like, if you want to go about like succeeding, if you want to succeed in this world, dressing in a way that's going to convey ignorance is like ultimately it's your choice, but you're just going to make your life a lot more difficult by going about things that way.
Go ahead. What the fun? What's your take on this conversation? Do you think that Gen Xers or the younger generation are too sensitive when the elders are trying to give them good instruction? Did you feel Kevin was right? Because I think Kevin's overall message was correct. His overall message was on point, but some say the way he came out, the way his delivery, it was too abrasive. What's your take on the conversation, brother?
I think we got to see the main goal. He's trying to reverse engineer the male Black image.
Right.
And so to do that, it can't be with baby steps. It kind of has to be something where we all get on code and really tackle giving a complete what we've been for the last, let's say, 20 years. So I think that's the perspective he's kind of getting. I think he got frustrated because, again, he's had these conversations with maybe other groups of people and they just completely, I understand. Logically, that makes sense. And for maybe having had that conversation with his own people, kind of like, this is the same thing every single have to keep explaining. I think the disconnect a lot comes from people of my generation or younger is that, unfortunately, the people who we saw wearing suits didn't convey character. If you grew up in the Black church, we saw a lot of hypocrites wearing suits. We saw a lot of men who were wearing suits doing the wrong things, being that I think the Black culture, the Black church was really like a pimp kind of a culture in a lot of ways. So we kind of associated suits with like finessing. Like, these dudes are selling, like he's selling snake oil. Like we actually don't see the idea of a man in a suit and incorporating, putting it with character, when in actuality, people easily do. But for young Black men, see people in suits, and I think a lot of times, unfortunately, our baseline is like, he's finessing, don't trust him, because of the things that we saw in the Black church. That's unfortunate but that's the reality. So I think the middle ground is that we have to kind of start having a conversation, start seeing that, not unfortunately, but in reality, suits do convey image. And when you do wear a suit, you do kind of yourself in a different type of manner. We definitely have been dropping the ball and kind of messing the whole image thing up. And the last thing I wanted to say is that, unfortunately, I think men are only going to dress what gets them laid. And the way that men dress now with the silliness, that gets females' attention, that gets women's attention. If it was the other way around, if men had to wear suits to even get like a chance to even talk to a female, then men would be wearing suits. I'm not trying to say that this is women's fault. I'm just saying this is all culture. We don't associate suit wearing. Men, we see suit as dirt.
Yeah, you're breaking up bad, brother.
Things like that. That's that we actually have to fix, because that's all. We shouldn't associate that with that, even though we've seen a lot of finessing in the Black church. So Kevin's idea is that we completely flip it and do a reverse engineering of our image, and that makes absolute sense, because in every other culture, suits do convey that and carrying yourself in that manner, and not so much of the jewelry, not so much of the pimp suits, but actually like I think like in like the 50s and 40s and like even further back then, like that, those types of suits is actually what we have to kind of do, where it's not so much about the swag, but it's about the for like myself as a man.
Well, I see your point, but we got to be careful with associating, having dichotomous thinking and associating suits with preachers. I do see your point, but suits also carry a greater connotation. Most people don't see suits as dealing with dusty preachers. You're right, there were dusty preachers that used the gospel for profit and gain. But there were also noble preachers that wore suits, because I remember a time, and they were good, righteous men. So we don't want to equivocate all people wearing suits as being charlatans and scam men. You are correct. There is a percentage that, dress to par and use suits to more or less swindle people. But I think the greater conversation, what the funk was, that there was a time where suits carried a level of respect, decorum, and image that projected success, common sense, and also projected that other people took us serious. I think Kevin's overall message was that now people don't even see suits are important, and because of that, the broader world don't take us serious. If you had everybody on the George Pettis Bridge, like he was saying, with fitted hats on and Timbs and sagging jeans, they're not going to take you serious. They've done studies, and they said that when men went into court for to be heard through trial, if they wore certain clothes like fitted hats, jeans, dreads, and tats, they were given harsher sentencing. But they came in with formal wear, and they were enunciating the words correctly. Even if they were swindlers, the suit gave them a greater level of credibility. And I think what Kevin is saying, he's right on this. There got to be a greater level of credibility in how the broader world's going to see not only black men, because it's not just a black male issue. I think it's a Western issue where kids don't project success. But as Tavis Smiley said, when white America get a cold, black folks get the flu, and black people cannot afford to do what other ethnic groups do, because our image has been marred since we came on the slave ship. We made a lot of progress in the early 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s, where there were communities and families. But now the families have been more or less dissipating, and there are so many boys growing up in families who don't see masculine men or masculine authority. Many are saying that many of these young men can't receive the truth because they're not used to seeing masculine men, and then when elders do give them levels or some level of decorum or expectation, they become emotional because they're not used to men giving them critique. Some will argue that what Kevin said 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago, the young men just will respect it out of respect and be quiet. So I can see both sides to the story. Some saying that Kevin was too abrasive, but then some will say if you're from a different generation, they talk like that all the time. Sometimes they would be even more harsh. But then the argument could go that the times are different, and we got to find a healthy way where both the Gen Xers can convey their message to the millennials and the zennials without causing any ill repute. What's your take on that?
I think you're absolutely correct, and I don't think that Kevin was abrasive at all. I think he was just speaking I'm really not telling people how to speak. Like, if the message is there, let them speak how they speak and take it or don't take it. But again, I think that's the disconnect with people. Like, I'm 40 years old, and like I said, people maybe my generation and younger, we were raised by women, and we were raised by women kind of to dress by what gets attention. We were raised by women to wear the fancy shoes. We weren't told by our moms to dress up like men or wear suits and convey respect. We were taught to convey attention, how to look the part, how to get attention from other women, like in a way that's what kind of is disconnect, because these young men are going to say, well, why am I going to wear a suit and spend and change my whole wardrobe when this is for my entire life? And we have to realize that the goal is reverse engineering the male black image. And if that's the case, then everything that you and Samuel said makes absolute sense.
Right. Go ahead, AJ. Look, you want to say something, brother. Go ahead.
Yeah. I want to piggyback on some things that my man just said, and also kind of to what the last caller talked about he wanted to just totally just push the character argument all the way to the side. And I think that what's interesting is when we talk about how you present yourself wearing a suit or whether it's sportswear or whatever, there's a reason why that attire speaks or says a certain thing.
Right.
The reason why wearing sportswear and gym shoes and J's or fitted caps speaks a certain thing to society is because of the character of the people who define that style.
I agree with that.
The reason
Yes,
why
sir.
a suit communicates what it communicates to broader society because of the character of the people that we identify with wearing a suit.
I agree. Yes, sir. I agree with that.
So, to capitalize on what else he said, that young people wearing suits or whoever wearing suits because it will get them attention from the opposite sex, from females. Well, guess what? Everybody is dressing according to the attention that they want to get. So in order to get young people or to get anybody with the idea to wear suits or to present themselves a certain way, you got to work on the character of that person to say, this is the results that you want in life and not those results. If you want that kind of attention, then it doesn't matter how much you tell him he needs to dress this way. He's not going to dress that way because he doesn't want that kind of attention. He wants this kind of attention. And he wants that kind of attention because of the character of the person and what he values. So we got to get back to the character issue and talking about what we should value. We got to talk to the young people about valuing character, valuing success, valuing integrity, right? If they want to get into that room, in order for me to get into that room, I need to dress this way. Well, I have the mentality to be in that room. Now I want to look like I should be in that room. But if I'm not even interested in getting in that room, I'm not going to wear the attire that's going to get me in that room. So once go back to my brother Sway, when he called in, he's basically saying, again, we got to work on the character and the mindset of young black men in general, because even some older cats, right, still wear the fitted, you're going to dress according to the room you want to be in.
Right.
And that's just the bottom line. And so we got to address that. We got to consider that, and we got to think about that and really deal with what do we think is important.
Right. I agree with that. Let me send this a $5 super sticker.
That's a bet, right? That's a deal, right? That's a deal, right? That's a bet, right? That's a deal, right? That's a deal, right?
Support black male academics, lawyers, and clinicians and PhDs, no doubt. I appreciate that, casual observer. Would you say, AJ and What the Funk, that the overall black man image is in tatters and it needs to be reformed? Because, I'm 50. I don't know how old you are, AJ, but it appears that a lot of these men have arrested development. I remember that when I was in my 20s, I would see grown men still wearing fitted hats and J's. And, I'm not against wearing that every now and then, but I don't think your wardrobe should be fitted hats and J's and baggy pants. I'm not against it, like if me and you going, the boys going out to the bowling alley, we wearing some J's or whatever. I'm not against wearing casual gear. Don't get it twisted. But I'm like, well, when you going to get your grown man on and have a higher level of semi-formal and professional wear at your arsenal? And I get the broader message of what Kevin is saying, because he's saying that overall, the broader image of black men, people don't take us serious, because when you got grown men walking around wearing J's and fitted hats, your development is arrested. So I think it has to be a conversation where we got to be very strategic in how we conduct ourselves. Like the Ecclesiastic says, a time for all things. What's your take on that?
I would utter the same thing. Again, what I witness with young people, right? I'm 43. I'm sorry, 44. Sometimes I forget my age. I'm sorry. But I have a grown son, and I know his mentality, and I'm around a lot of young men. I work with a lot of young men, and I understand that at the end of the day, they are going to behave and function according to what they want to accomplish. So the idea of them being arrested, having arrested development, has a lot to do with their mindset and what they actually want to accomplish in life. Depending on what type of work they do, depending on what their everyday activities are, is going to determine how they dress and how they carry themselves, right? And the image that they project. Okay, so I think as older men, right, begin to communicate to younger men and say, listen, this is the kind of success you say you want. This is how you're going to get it, right? You say you want that. If you really want that, then there's certain steps that you got to take in order to accomplish that, right? Okay, and that's going to come with how you carry yourself, how you think, and how you approach life. And that is also going to eventually affect how you dress, because it's going to put you again in different company and in different rooms. So it's about you just having a mindset to want to grow. And you got to deal with the young people who actually do want to grow. You're not going to change the minds of the young people or change the minds of anybody who's pretty much complacent with where they are. That's like the conversation they had on Mr. Lee's shows. Everybody can't go, right? We hear that conversation all the time. Everybody can't go because everybody doesn't want to go, right? But for those that do want to go, it's not hard if you're just having a conversation and you're dealing with it from the inside out, right? You're dealing with it from actually impressing on the values that they have, what they really want to, see happen, change, and whatever change they want to happen in their lives, and then get to the point where the attire comes into play and the image that they project. Because I believe that as Black folks, when we change how we view life and change what we value in life, our image is automatically going to change.
Right,
It's
right,
automatically.
right.
That's the reason why other races of people, like white folks, can walk into a room with just jeans and some shoes from Walmart somewhere and
Right.
get a different reaction.
Right. They're not perceived as a threat, but by default, Black men are perceived as a threat many times. And I think what people are saying is that you exacerbate that. Like I said before, some people think these conversations are trivial, but it's not trivial as it relates to the broader issues that are impacting the Black whole. Now listen, one could argue also that Black people are not monolithic, and that's true. We are not monolithic. But we might not be monolithic in ideologies, but we are monolithic in our suffering and how many people see us. And because of that, as a collective, we need to do our part with trying to reform or rebrand how the world sees us. As I said earlier, I'm not saying you got to wear a suit all the time. I'm not saying you got to dress formal all the time. I'm not saying you got to be semi-casual all the time. But what I am saying is, damn it, if 80% of your dress is J's and Tim's and fitted hats, and you don't have any semi-formal and formal wear in your arsenal, then you're doing a disservice to yourself and the way the world see you. As I said earlier, like Tavis Smiley said, that when Black America get a cold, white America get the flu. I mean, when Black America, white America get the cold, Black America get the flu. And the question remains now that some say that the elders are disconnected from the youth, but then some say that the youth are too sensitive. They don't want to listen, and they don't respect elders because they've never seen a community of masculine men because they were raised by their moms, which in essence makes them very emotional. What's your take on that? What the funk?
Again, you guys are spot on. I think Neely Fuller Jr. is about this, where it's like the gentleman in the car was kind of speaking about, like, you want to get in these certain rooms or you want to convey yourself as a level of success. But unfortunately, a lot of us equate success with money. And in the system of white supremacy, when you really start to buffoon yourself, you actually do get success. If you don't carry yourself as if you're wearing a suit, if you actually do start wearing, dressing like a minstrel, then you get a level of success. And then once you get that level of success, you start getting, the. So it's very difficult to try to get people numb on code when they're going to be rewarded to break that code. They're going to be rewarded to, because again, if the goal is to reverse engineer the Black male image, then there's going to be entities that reward those who go against that. And you can look at the Young Thugs, you can look at the hip hop culture, you can look at many. And so many of us as young men, I don't know why I'm older, but so many of us as young men, we kind of equate success. Well, I can do whatever I want. I can dress however I want because, I got this money and I got this support. So once you get that, you really don't feel the need to dress on code or to dress conveying respect because, you got that job and you can still wear your dreads, you have your tattoos, and you have companies and individuals behind you supporting and sponsoring the buffoonery. So I guess the real question is, how do we try to get a majority of us to be on code to reverse engineer the Black male image when there's going to be so many entities that are going to be paying and supporting Black men to go against that?
That's a good point. You know, AJ, so many of the young people don't respect older brothers. Like they're called like you and me, and what the funk is 40, so he's a 20er, but they call us old ninjas. You're in the middle, but they call us old ninjas. What's your take on that? The level of disrespect where they don't respect, you know, the Gen Xers. I think some of it is lack of having fathers and community. But what's your take on that, AJ?
You hitting on it right there. I heard a young urban youth, right, convey this idea. He said it clearly. He said, we don't respect the older generation. We're not trying to hear anything they have to say because the very men who were supposed to be there, who we were supposed to be able to rely on, weren't there. If my father wasn't there, why should I listen to you, Kosher Clinician? Why should I listen to you, Mr. Lee? Why should I listen to you, Kevin? Why should I listen to you tell me what I should do when the man who was supposed to be there wasn't even there to teach me what I'm supposed to do and how I'm supposed to behave, right?
Right.
So now you have a community of men, or and let's be honest, the older generation is not even that active at trying to even educate the young people. You got a few, brothers like us who are trying to talk to the youth whenever we find an opportunity. But let's be honest, most of us older men don't want to be bothered. And when we do speak to them, we speak to them with animosity. We speak to them with a certain level of disdain because we already have an issue with how they behave and how they function. And we don't approach them to build relationship. We don't approach them with a heart to genuinely care about them. So what they say is when you do come to me and you do say something to me, and you might even be absolutely right about what you are saying, but your intentions aren't good. And you're coming to me to teach me, to tell me what I'm supposed to do, just so you can say you schooled a young dude. Just so you can have some clout and say, yeah, man, I had to tell this young cat such and such and such and such. And a lot of these young men feel that they're just a project or they're just a notch on an old cat's belt as far as, saying that they have educated somebody. And what I will argue is that if we, the older generation, really want to impart wisdom, to really want to impart instruction and guidance to young people, we got to build with these young people. We got to build a relationship with these young people. We got to let these young people know that we're talking to them because we actually care about them.
Right.
Because the men that were in their lives, that were supposed to be in their lives, to show them that weren't. And we got to deal with that issue.
Well, could it be argued that the young men are actually sabotaging themselves due to their rebellion over things that we didn't have anything to do with? Because some could argue, well, just because you didn't have a dad, if you got a man that's trying to invest in you, you're going to be a saboteur to your own ignorance because you're projecting your pain or your displaced aggression on men that don't have anything to do with your absent father or the dusty man that your mom chose. So it would be incumbent upon you to listen to brothers that have paved the way and get some critical game to help you update your style. But to just go on a tangent and be emotional and castigate all men for the malfeasance of your father is ignorant, in my opinion, because I'm not going to castigate another wise man that's trying to help me just because my daddy wasn't there. That's very feminine to me. Do you see my point? I'm going to let that elder speak and give me some guidance if he's trying to help me, But, if you say, well, you remind me of my dad and y'all old ninjas know what y'all talking about. Well, damn it, your generation's not even no better. You're not doing anything productive or sustainable. And I think we have more of the latter. And it's not just black kids. It's just the Western kids in general. They don't have a level of decorum. But once again, black men in America always are seen as pariahs. We're seen as the negative ones. And because of that, we tend to get a greater penalty than the other ethnic groups. What's your guys' take on that?
I think you're spot on. I think, realistically, we have to realize that most of us and our mothers were our fathers, and music and entertainment were our mothers. Meaning that our mothers kind of supported and provided, and then the people who actually imparted in us and taught us what we really know was probably entertainment and music. So we really don't have a thing. If you really think about entertainment, you'll notice that the black man on television, starting from the 90s and up, has always been kind of buffoonery. It was never the Fred Sanford, it was never a male masculine that was in the 80s, with the 2 7s, or the like you know the sitcoms I'm talking about, and after the 90s and 2000s, like it was always shucking and jiving. I can't believe I'm saying shucking and jiving. I really am an elder, but yes, it was shucking and jiving. And as we see that growing up, we really don't respect the elder black man. And the elder black man that we grew up with, as far as times they did come around trying to mentor us. It was a lot of times like sexual gratification with our mothers, or it was because like in church we like they're sitting in church and already looking through it. So we have to figure out in our age group how to learn to, one, come to the table with respect and reverence and saying like, okay, you guys have made it through this system of white supremacy. You have played this game of chess. You have put yourself in a situation where you are an average black man in America is not an average black man. An average black man that's making at least $50,000 is actually, he's beat the system in so many different ways. And he's like jail or in so many other situations. So we have to realize that that elder gentleman that we're speaking to is not an average man, but somebody who has played this game of life and he's still alive. And then the other aspect, I think the elder gentlemen have to kind of come to the table and realize we don't know. We haven't been, we are full of toxins. We are full of ready to fight if we feel we got disrespected. And that's something that's been placed into us, in this society. And we have to be able to realize, let the old men cook, and then at the same time, then respond. And I think we have to give more grace to the elders, and the elders have to give grace to us because they don't.
I agree with that. Right. I agree with that. Right. I agree. I think you're right because we're assuming that the youth were socialized the way we were socialized, and they weren't. But then the youth assumed that because they weren't socialized, we got to be socialized how they're socialized. And masculine men are not going to tolerate that foolishness. I know I'm not. Because as a therapist, I deal with clients. I tell them what my boundaries are. The younger ones, if you think you're going to waste my time, I don't even keep cards. Get rid of them because you're wasting my time. My time is more important than money because as you get older, you can make money, but you can't make time. And so I don't keep debating with people because a lot of folks won't help, but they don't want help. They won't help on their own terms. And many don't have the work ethic, what the funk and AJ, to work through their issues. They want short solutions to big problems. And I think what Kevin is trying to say is that if you want to have a rebranding or redistribution of the black image, you got to start somewhere, and you got to be more intentional about how you conduct yourself so that the broader world can take you serious. Because I agree with them. Being 6'5", 6'6" with shoes on, when I dress more semi-formal, and I can conduct myself in a way I get taken more seriously. But when I dress more, if I wore a fitted hat and some damn baggy jeans or a hoodie, they're not going to take me serious. Actually, they're going to be more intimidated by me. So we get it. Wearing suits don't always guarantee that you're not going to be discriminated against. We understand that. But what we are saying is that the more you conduct yourself as a person that has arrested development, people are going to judge you a lot more harshly. And it also depends on the demographic that you're from. It depends on the region of the United States that you're from. Some are more lenient, some are more tolerant, some are less lenient, and some are less tolerant. Shout out to my man Clement Gray for that $5 super sticker.
That's a bet, right?
Clement Gray, shout out to you,
That's
brother.
a deal, right? That's a bet, right? That's
Clement
a
Gray
deal,
said
right? That's
that
a deal, right?
these young men are rebellious because a lot of them are raised by rebellious mothers, grandmothers, and aunts to repair the starts, and to repair it starts with the mom. What's your take on that, AJ? Because many of these boys were raised by rebellious women that don't respect men or masculine authority, or the mothers had a lot of displaced aggression towards their husbands or the men that got them pregnant, and their boys internalize a lot of that. But what's your take on it, AJ?
So you set the groundwork right there when you said that we have to be men, we have to be masculine men, and at the end of the day, we set a standard, right? And we have to hold that standard as older gentlemen, right, who understand what's right and what's wrong, and we set that standard. And we invite young people to come into that space to be able to build that relationship based on that standard. We don't lower it. We keep it where it's supposed to be, right? And there will be young people who will take us up on that invitation. And there will be young people who reject it. And at the end of the day, same how you do the clients that come into your office that just don't want the help, you can't do nothing with those, right? You can't do anything with those young people. But there are young people who, if we just get them opportunity, who were raised by women, who do have a lot of femininity in them, who do have a lot of emotional issues, right? And have a hard time managing those emotions. They need men like us who can think sober-mindedly, right? Who can think critically, right? And be calm and cool and collected and be able to just build with them. Not like, and I hate to go back to it, not like what Kevin did. right? But more so the approach that you take and I see you take on a regular basis, right? Because at the end of the day, when we set that standard and we are communicating with these young people and they really want to learn, there's progress that could be made. And I think that, again, we need more of us to do it because I don't think it's enough of us to do it. So these young men don't have enough examples of men who really care enough to build with them versus exasperate them or berate them just for clout. They need more of us to step up to the plate, and that's hard to come by. And conversations like this help to bring a lot of us together so that we can build a community to do that. But that's what it's going to take. It's going to take more of us older men setting the standard, but also inviting them into the space to really be able to build with them and have that conversation.
But I like what Truth Over Emotion said, and he said, how can we get women to like men in suits? And basically, we don't value education in the black community many times, especially in the urban and the inner city. We don't value the educated lane like other ethnic groups of women. So I would say Truth Over Emotion, those women that don't value men in suits, it's fine. Keep working on yourself, stack your paper up, keep fortifying your mind with wisdom, knowledge, and intellect, and wait till about 5 to 10 years and see what's going to happen, because those same women that don't honor and respect you now, they're going to be trying to get with you years later. And there's a mass movement now, guys, where men are beginning to travel abroad. They get women that are conditioned to honor and respect intelligence over swag. Black men can have swag, but if swag supersedes your overall ethnic image, it's an issue in my opinion. We got to get to a point where we're not so caught up in swag and goofiness versus projecting a healthy black image that's going to more or less be beneficial to us long term as a community. The point is, our community is so fragmented, and it's fragmented in so many pieces with many different ideas and ideologies that I think, AJ, and What the Funk, it's going to take generations. I think you got to burn it down and rebuild it. And I don't know how long that's going to take. I don't think it can be repaired in my lifetime. That's me. Doesn't mean I'm not going to go and do my best to try to help the young men that want help. I'm going to try to help them. But at the same time, I'm not going to waste my time on fallow ground. I'm just not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. Let me see what LAR Movement say. Shout out to my brother LAR Movement. That's my homie. He said, how long should an elder put up with youth disrespect? I agree with that, LA. I think you should give them a level of grace, LAR Movement. I want you to pop on too, LA. I would love to hear your position. You're a bright brother. You've been in these spaces for a while. LAR Movement, I would love for you to pop in, brother. I love you, brother. But I would say we don't have to put up with that disrespect for long. Because there is a big disconnect where they don't respect elders, and you can try to guide them, and if it gets to the point where they're not willing to be guided, then you got to continue to move on. Shout out to Dwayne H for that $10 super sticker. Thank you, Dwayne H.
That's a bet, right?
I'm Dwayne H said right?
That's
in a minute.
Deal, right?
Shout out to him.
That's a bet, right? That's a deal, right? That's a deal,
Dwayne
right?
H said $1,300 suit. I don't know what that is. Be agreeable, convenient, fall in view of the. Okay, yeah. Maybe you had to come up, Dwayne H, and break that down, brother. But thank you, Dwayne H, for that $5 super sticker. Thank you, brother. I really appreciate that. I want LA to come up at some point. Shout out to the Steel Curtain. The old proverb: "Cut off one's nose to spite one face," come to mind. Common curiosity and decency should be extended. A wise man recognizes the innate value, no matter the vehicle, wherever the vehicle is attached to. That's a good point, Steel Curtain. I would love to hear your point on that as well. And shout out to the Steel Curtain. But it's a conversation that needs to be explored and addressed, guys, because there is a chasm in heteronormative masculinity. There is a chasm in the image of the black man. And there's a chasm that's continued to more or less precipitate because there's a communication between the elders and the youth. I heard some young men calling older men like myself, we're not going to listen to these old ninjas. To me, which is very disrespectful. Because I do agree with the young people, once again, that suits don't always matter. But if you don't think having a couple of suits in your arsenal can't improve your overall image, then you're a fool. Because people see you differently based on how you project yourself. If you project yourself like you're goofy and that you're a bum, then they're going to treat you as such. But black men of the past, that were Gen Xers and baby boomers and even further back, we knew that we had to always be better. And I think that's what the generation now guys is lacking. They don't realize that they got to be better than their predecessors. Even though we made progress, we made a lot of progress, They don't understand the duality of being better than the next man. What's your take on that, AJ, and what the funk that we still got to be better in these modern times?
Well, I'm
Sure,
gonna
I'll answer
definitely
it.
agree.
Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. We got to be better in these modern times. The, the the reality of it is that again, these young people pretty much have a culture of rebellion. They have a culture of emotion. Like emotionalism is what comes to mind when I think about them. And I think it's true. Let's be honest. It's true of the older generation too.
Right.
Honestly, we are still dealing with people of our own generation who we are still having to have conversations with, or not even be bothered with because they are not having the mentality to think sober mindedly and critically about life, right? And improve their own image, right? So that's the challenge, right? To be the leadership that these young people need, right? That's the challenge because these young people don't want leadership. A lot of them, they lack leadership, and we have to basically kind of key in on those select few or that subsect of them that actually is embracing or looking forward to that type of leadership. Because I've been around a lot of young people. I've raised them, right? Nephews, my son's friends, and just even young men that I've taken into my own home. And I noticed even in their rebellion, they have this desire to want to have that male figure in their life. And and I noticed that it's not enough of us to take on the task. And that's why this conversation is so important. That's why I wanted to jump on. And that's why the conversation last night was so important. Because again, we are the leaders. So this thing is going to go according to how we go. And as the more we demonstrate masculinity, true manhood, the more that they're going to see it demonstrated around them, instead of a lot of the older men pretty much demonstrating the same foolishness that they're used to seeing as young people.
No doubt, no doubt. Let me shout out to my man, James Turner. He's a professional brother, a brother that I respect highly. James Turner said that image is extremely important. What many young men don't understand is that what many young men don't understand is that your image is what I see and suspect first of a person. The character is what sustains you. I love that, man. I don't see your character, I see your image. Bam, that is powerful, brother. I like that, James Turner. That is on point. You're right. Because people don't see your character first, they see your image. That's an excellent point. Even though men that wear suits can have a horrible character, but that's why men with suits are able to trick people, because they look at their image first. They don't look at their character. Shout out to my man Sean Whitehorn for that $10 super sticker, brother. And Sean Whitehorn, that's for you, brother. Fire for your mind. Fire for your mind. Sean Whitehorn on today. The Kosher. Because our mind needs to be erased from the negative things that have impacted us in a negative way over the years. It's time to have our schemas remodified in order to have a more cohesive unit as it relates to the things that are salient in the black community. LAR movement, keep moving, brother. How would you like to add to the conversation? That's my homie. He's been I call him the Duke in the manosphere and these YouTube streets. But LAR movement, how would you like to add to the conversation, brother? Go ahead.
First and foremost, how y'all doing?
How you doing,
I'm
brother?
working, so I'm gonna hop in and hop out in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things about the generational issue would, in my opinion, would be the younger generation. I'm in my early 40s, so generation 20 years younger than me, they have this sassiness that people in my age group can't mess with.
Right.
Because we come from a more strict and more violent era. So sassy don't really cut it with us.
Mm-hmm.
And they play like what they play as disrespect, and they talk like that was stuff that'll get our teeth smacked out of our face from our own parents. And that stuff we didn't even take from our own peers if we were out in society. And the reason I bring that up is because I really don't think a lot of the youth understand, for the most part, I would say from my age group up, you're dealing with actual people who came up in poverty in the hood, and now most of these kids are suburban.
Right. I agree with that. Yes, sir. Mm-hmm.
And they really, a lot of their struggles, I don't even think we can connect with, because like, that's your struggle. Like, if you haven't had a father, I hold like every black man that we knew, that was the story. You know, it was a bunch of dads' heads cut off of pictures and photo albums. That was just a normal thing in our household.
That's true.
You
Right.
know, so it's not like we don't hear them, we don't get them, but we just don't get how a lot of these things seem to break them down. Because to me, it looks like they're just using excuses to be lazy,
Mm-hmm.
and that's something I don't think a lot of us can rock with.
Do you feel in our movement that the youth are coachable overall? Do you feel overall that the youth are coachable overall?
Yeah, everybody's coachable. It's just I think that they have a different mentality of you gonna fight with me until I quit, and then you can coach me. And I don't think they realize people are like, no, if you say you want to be coached, I'm gonna coach you. If you do all this crazy stuff, I'm moving on. There's less of this back and forth. Because I think, like when I was saying, like, we grew up in a harsh environment, a poor environment. We wanted to get out of that environment.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think most of these kids want to get out of the environment they're in because they're comfortable. So I don't think they have a real reason to actually fight the coaching in the first place.
Mm-hmm. 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 You know, there was some LA that says that sometimes the elders don't always show a level of respect to the youth. Many agree that Kevin was spot on with what he was saying, but some say his delivery could have been a little better. What's your take on that? Do you feel like his delivery was on point? How did you see it?
The thing about it is, and I might say I'm harsh when I say this, if we're going to be the leaders of the community, we're not going to kowtow to people that could be our children. That's rule number one in the first place. When we were children, we stayed in the child's place. When we were with adults who were older than us, we stayed. We're not them. So if they said something to us that we didn't like, well, guess what? They older than you. That's what it is. There has to be a hierarchy in that sense. To actually always think that I'm on your same level and you need to respect me like this, like that. The problem with that normally is, okay, since we're gonna go this road, and since you grown like that, I'm gonna treat you like you grown like that. And the minute that happens, the same people revert to being a child again. You need to be my elder. You need to be my OG. You need to show me. So you can't keep flip-flopping, hopping back and forth with wanting to be on somebody's level and then wanting to be somebody's student.
Right.
We had a good understanding about it.
I see your point. AJ, look, you wanted to say something. Go ahead, brother.
Yeah, I'm just listening to him, and just from this conversation and just a conversation I had in the chat with a individual over the conversation last night, and just what we've talked about here. I've noticed that us as older men, and as I mentioned before, that our ability to basically tolerate and build with the younger generation is a hell of a task, because when you think as a man, just like this brother just said here, you don't really have a lot of patience for another young man, especially if he's not your son.
That's true.
He's not your son. He's not your blood. You're not responsible for him in a direct sense. So you're not going to really have patience to tolerate the level of disrespect or even the amount of pushback that young man or these young people will give you. So it's much easier to just say, you know what? I'm not even going to deal with it. I don't even want to be bothered, because I know me and I know what I can handle and I know what my buttons are. And this young man doesn't know my buttons. And I can't even trust that he's going to use judgment not to push him. So I'm not going to be bothered. And most of us have that mentality. So the initial conversation of saying, hey, young man, listen, let me say, either sometimes don't even happen because we're already thinking like chess that it's going to go wrong because you can't tell these young people nothing. Or if you do approach the young person and you had a conversation and you get immediate pushback or disrespect or some type of foolishness, it's an immediate turnoff and you'd want to end the conversation and remove yourself from the conversation. So that right there makes it very discouraging that there are enough of these young people and enough of us older people to be able to have those conversations with enough of them to be able to change things. So again, I always say, and I stand by this, that real change is going to take place when our families are restored, which means as men, we have to start in our homes. So if you are a man that cares about the culture and cares about everything changing in the male black image, you got to start at home and make sure that you are implementing that with your own children and your own sons, right? Because that has an exponential benefit to it, right? That like you said, Coach the Clinician, you might not see it in your generation. But you're going to take that time and you're going to be patient to make sure that you implant those seeds in the people that you do have invested interest in your children or your nephews and stuff like that. And as far as a lot of these young people, because we know the statistic, we know that 75% of these kids out here are in single parent households.
Right, right. Mm-hmm.
So that means there is a lack of male leadership a lot of times in these young men's life, and you are trying to fill a role that is very hard to fill when it was vacated. So now we got that challenge, and I just say that for any older gentleman who really cares, that he always allow himself to be open to the possibility of being able to mentor or school or be able to build a relationship with a young person. But you got to take it as it comes because it's far and few in between.
Well, I'll say this, man.
Unfortunately.
I taught school for 5 years. Actually, I taught for about 5 years. I worked in law enforcement. I worked as a mental health corrections officer for 2. I did 7 years with the Department of Juvenile Justice. And I will say that it's gotten worse since that point. I poured in a lot of time and service. So people say, what are you doing for the young people? I did for almost damn near 12 years. And the responses that I see, many of them didn't do anything with their lives. All that tutelage that I gave them, all that pouring in that I gave them, it didn't really change. Because it goes back to what theology said. You can't take new wine and put it into old wineskin. You got to change the wineskin in order to get the newness from it. That's what Jesus said, and I believe that. You got to change the culture first, and you got to change it. Because we live in a culture now where the women don't respect our men. They don't respect the men like they should. And until our women respect the men like they should, until we have laws that respect masculinity, these boys will continue to be archetypes of the same women that we have issues with because we don't have the proper policies in place that can advocate for the black men and the black family. Look at this last election. They didn't vote for policies that were beneficial for black men, black families, and black community. They voted for themselves. So we live in a culture of individualism. And this is not a black man issue. It's an American man issue where men in general are not respected and revered. And there's constantly a barrage of attacks that are going on where people don't want to respect heteronormative masculinity. And so that's why I say until a major crisis happens, like what's going on in Ukraine, I don't see that evolution because in my mind, AJ and LAR move, and I'm a couple of years, y'all like little brothers to me because I'm 50. When I was 20, y'all were 13. In my mind, it's gotten worse. It hasn't gotten better, it's gotten worse. And there's so many competing factors like the alphabet community that's distorting the image of black men and black families. How can we compete with that? How can we compete with those idioms that are more or less impacting us in a negative way? Let me send this shout out to my man Top Gun for that $5 super stick. He said, it must be privileged to think that us old men just owe any patient or understanding just to teach, uplift, and inspire. I see your point, brother. I agree with that. Miss Parker back to basics said, yes, charity starts at home and spreads abroad, right. But where's the charity at? Where's the respect? But you're right, Miss Parker. I agree with you 100%. And Clement Gray said that may not get a second chance to make a first impression. Can lose it all if you got bad character, though. Seeing that the parents these days for men are so tight they get a yeast infection.
That's a bet, right? That's a deal, right? That's a deal, right?
Oh, Suits.
That's a bet, right?
I can see that point.
Right? That's a deal, right?
You're right, man. A lot of these brothers are wearing the skinny jeans and the tight pants and all of that. LAR movement, are the elders out of touch with the youth? Are the elders out of touch in your opinion?
Yeah and no. Yeah, okay, because we have the society that the youth grow up in is completely different from the society that we grew up in.
You're right. Mm-hmm.
So we have grown into the society, but prime example. When I was a kid, you would get a paddle in the school.
Yes, sir.
You would get a ruler in the school.
I agree.
Your parent might come to the school and take you into the bathroom and beat the brakes off you.
Yep.
So even the interaction as far as youth, we knew, yeah, I could talk crazy to an adult if I want, but them being an adult doesn't mean they're not gonna put their hands on I might get mauled in this situation trying to be like that. Now, as the years progressed, you saw that less and less. So now parents can't come to school and do that. The teachers can't do that. So what I see is the upbringing of the kids now. They don't they don't know of a society where anybody can get it, even
Yes.
children.
Right.
So the
That's true.
respect
I
factor
agree.
is
I agree.
completely different.
Yes, sir.
Because
I
I
agree.
remember as kids, teenagers, young man, the respect level was there because there was no there was no idea in most of our heads to go, you know what? I can say whatever I want. Can't nobody do nothing to me. No, it was if you say whatever you want or do whatever you want, anybody could do something to you.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it's like that's a total different society. So we definitely out of touch with them today.
Right. I totally agree with you, man. It's how they've been socialized, and the socialization has caused to the disconnect, and that socialization has caused a lot of the elders to become frustrated because they up is down and down is up. And it appears to me, the AJ and LAR movement, that some will argue that this current generation has an entitlement complex, and they like the mental dexterity to go do a lot of the things that we went through as kids. We had to really get ours from the mud. But many now, because they're from a generation where everything is digital and everything is so quick, they don't have the patience or the wherewithal to fight through the barriers that we had to fight through as men. I caught hell coming and getting what I got as a man. I went through a lot of discrimination. I got judged a lot, even when I spoke well. I used to have some of my white colleagues say, "You're very articulate." And I'm like, what the heck is that supposed to mean? So, but the newer generation, what I see many times when they go through adversity, they don't fight through it. They just quit. They give up. They give up a lot faster than the new generation. And, because they were socialized different. And many come in, the men, the boys and the girls, with entitlement issues where they think they're entitled just because. They think just because I deserve a ribbon, I deserve to get a prize. But they haven't done anything. And I think parents have more or less satiated that to some degree, to the point that we've broken our kids because we tried to give them what we didn't have, and they didn't teach them characters. Human beings by nature want to take the path of least resistance. But when you give your kids something to work towards, then they can appreciate it because it builds character. There's an old saying that says that tough times make tough men, but good times make soft men. And I think we've had good times now to the point that we have soft men and women, and they're not mentally tough to go do anything. So anytime you give them any harsh level of critique, then it's an issue because they're not used to the admonishment that the elders are giving. Now, I'm not saying, once again, the elders are always right. To the people that are listening, the 64 that are watching, I'm not saying that elders are always right. You can have some old fools. But I would say, by and large, when you have somebody that have lived a life and they are respectable and you can see the fruits of their labor, then you should listen to them because they can give you some critical game that can help you not deal with some of the pitfalls that they went through. What's your take on that, brother?
Can I say something and I'll get out of here, fellas?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
What you just said is part of what I was thinking about.
Mm-hmm.
When I was younger, we had winos and addicts and whatnot, and even though we didn't respect them for being winos and addicts, if they saw us going down their same path, we would still listen. That, hey, young man, you sound real cocky. Yeah, I was just like that, and that's how I wound up like this. So you might want to stop that. And even for a person we didn't respect as an elder, for them to say that, we was like, oh, I might have to switch this up now.
Right.
Because, it ain't going to never be me hit harder when the person that said, yeah, I said it ain't going to never be me too. And you see where I'm at. That part is changed. But thanks for having me, man. I got to get back.
No doubt, man. Much love, LAR Moon. I love you, brother. I appreciate it, man. AJ, anything else you want to add to the conversation, brother? You have a lot of wisdom and insight. Yeah. Go ahead, brother.
Yeah, I'm gonna say this, and I probably have to dip too. But
right, me too.
I've heard you say it plenty times, Kosher, that this is a coddled generation. They are coddled, and we know that who they are being coddled by. They are being coddled by their mothers, who have full autonomy to raise these boys or raise these children, pretty much predominantly. And as a result, you have children who are put on pedestals. Right? I've heard you say that before plenty of times. Children that are put on pedestals, and either fathers are absent or pretty much excluded from the program. it's a domino effect, right? It's just a domino effect because the presence of real men teaching it will take a man to make a child work for it.
Right.
You got some mothers, don't get me wrong, who understand this, who have an old school mentality that say, look, you got to work for it, but they can't do it like a man would.
Right,
So
right,
you
right.
have an absence of men who are basically.
I think I lost you, AJ. I think I lost you, AJ. Go ahead, brother.
Did I?
Yeah, there you go. I see you.
Did I? Hello.
I see you, AJ. Go ahead, brother.
Did I?
I see you. You're fine.
Okay.
I see
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
I see you. Go ahead.
Yeah, I could. You sound like a robot though for some reason. Well, like I said, we know that these young people are pretty much coming into this world and pretty much being put on a pedestal. They are given everything. We always talk about the idea of them, giving them things that we didn't have, but it takes a man to say, no, we need to teach them things we didn't know. We need to educate them and pretty much put it, make sure that they are informed and have the character and the fortitude to be able to withstand things, to be able to stand firm in life when it gets difficult, and not allow themselves to fall apart in tough times. And again, that comes from male leadership. So one of the comments is that, God, it must be a privilege for us to have patience. But to be honest, that's just the reality, right? If we are not going to have the patience to deal with these young people and teach the ones we can teach, then they'll be lost, right? They'll be lost by the wayside.
Right. I agree.
And then, unfortunately, we'll have a dwindling down of our society. We'll continue to keep going in reverse.
Right, because some of these young women don't want to listen to the older women. They call them mammies and pick-me's. They don't want to hear their message. And so when some of the older brothers try to give the young men guidance and game, there's a percentage that will listen, but some are so damn far gone because I used to work with them. And some of the same ones I worked with them is try to teach them. It went right in one ear and went right out of the other. Many are not even doing nothing with their lives. And what I'm saying, AJ, it takes too much energy to pour into people if you're not going to get the results that you want. That's a lot of energy and time wasted on fallow ground. The gospel talks about don't waste your seed on fallow ground, which means if the mind is not prepared to hear the truth because it's too hard, then you got to move on. Because as Mr. Lee said, I agree with him, this message is not going to be for everybody. Everybody can't get on this train to success. Harriet Tubman said, I could have freed a lot more, AJ, if they didn't already know that they were slaves. Some are still slaves to the ignorance of their mind, and they are not willing to make the proper adjustments to get the outcomes that they need. As I said before earlier, black people are not monolithic. We were forced into oneness when we came here from slavery. We were forced into oneness. But now, we are so fragmented and there are so many competing agendas and competing factions. It's going to take years, in my opinion. I think you got to burn it down and rebuild it. That's my opinion. Because trying to, put new seed and new fertilizer on broken ground is going to be a waste of seed, money, and time. But that's my opinion. Because, the ground was a lot more softer, AJ, when we were kids growing up. It was a different generation. I don't know where you're from. Are you from up top? You from the South? Where you from, brother?
Detroit.
You're from Detroit, right. And so, even in Detroit now is totally different than Detroit a couple of years ago. These young bloods now, there was a level of respect with the elders and the children, but they'll kill old folks now. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, you're right. I fully agree.
Right.
I fully agree that at the end of the day, you can't save everybody, and that there's only a certain amount of grace that you can bestow, and there's only a certain amount of patience you can have. But if we're open to being able to help who we can help, then we'll save who we can save, because everybody's not going to be saved. Like that's
everybody's not going to be saved,
and that's an objective truth that I think we as men can accept, because that's what we are good at doing anyway. We're accepting. Right. We know how to accept reality. This is not an emotional, idealistic viewpoint, and I think you expressed that very clearly in the show yesterday. Even when it seemed to be a lot more idealistic about just being able to totally transform this thing. Maybe we can, maybe we can't. We can do what we can, but as long as we have the mindset and the desire to do it, we'll save who we can save. But the reality of it is we really don't know. We really don't know. Like, honestly.
Yeah, well, you know what? We can all just do what we can do, and we can't worry about the rest. But there definitely needs to be a de-evolution of thought, and there needs to be a de-evolution of thought that's towards positivity, and that's why I'm so, so passionate about male empowerment and getting with positive brothers like yourself and other good men that are trying to get the best outcome. So I know you got to go, AJ, man. I appreciate it, brother. Thank you for your time in this conversation, brother. And feel free to come back on at any time, man. You're an intelligent brother, and you add a lot of clarity to the conversation, okay?
Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you.
No doubt, brother. Thank you. Yeah, Alonzo Hall, the All-Star Advisor. If you want to pop on, brother, feel free to pop on Alonzo Hall, the All-Star Survivor. You're a young buck. Feel free to pop on. And shout out to MC Recovery, Wellness, and Relapse. Thank you always for the support.
That's a bet, right? That's a deal, right? That's a deal, right? That's a bet, right? That's a deal, right? That's a deal, right?
Women a different race, Kevin said. When I speak on black male issues at work, LA County mental health employers are defending the policy and the system. That's interesting. So Alonzo Hall, feel free to pop on, brother. But you got to cam up because I don't know you. But if you want to come on, feel free to cam up, Alonzo, if you want to. To some of the other young men that are listening, if you want to come on and have a conversation, come on up because I want to hear from the young men, the Gen X, the millennials and the zennials on this conversation because I think it's going to be very important to talk about some of the things that we need to talk about if we're going to have a de-evolution of black male thought. As again, to the guys that are coming in, I had a show and I was on the panel with Kevin Samuels, with Sage Lee on the Lapeef Network. And we were talking about the black male image and why the black male image is so important to how others see us, but also getting the proper outcomes that can help us become better versions of ourselves. Based on the conversation, there was a young man called Sway in the morning, and some say that Kevin was 100% correct in what he said, but they felt like that he cut the young man off, that he didn't listen to the young man, and the young man never got a chance to get his point across. Some are saying that the Gen Xers are out of touch with the youth. Some are saying that the youth are too sensitive. They don't understand Gen Xers. Some are saying that a lot of our Gen X, our youth that are men, are, have been raised by single women to the point that they're very emotional. But truth to point, based on the conversation that Kevin had with this young man, many will agree that Kevin was 1,000% correct about changing the image of black men. Some had consternation with his delivery. And so that was the crux of the whole conversation, the crux of the whole matter. I've dropped a link. I want some of the other young men to come on because I got to get to the office in a few minutes to see clients. But I do these shows, guys, because I love to see young men empowered. I love to see women understanding that if you empower the men, then the men will turn around and empower you. Some of you women that are listening are saying that you want a man to protect you. But what are you doing to protect his ego? Are you willing to protect his six by being loyal? Are you willing to protect his six by being honest and being agreeable and respecting the man? Are you willing to protect his six by cooperating? Are you willing to protect his six by giving him the things that he needs in order to fulfill the vision that God gave him here on his limited time in the earth? Are you willing to give the educated lanes a chance? Are you willing to give men that are good men the time of the day? Because a lot of these men are saying, I don't want you when you've had too much fun. Now you want to come back and you think I'm going to put a ring on your finger. But men want women that's going to honor them while they're on their ascension. Not once they get there, now all of a sudden you want a good man. Because guess what? Men have standards too. And so, there's a great chasm once again. There's a generation gap between the youth and there's a generation gap between the elders. Who's right? Who's wrong? Do the elders lack the proper communication style to articulate their points with the youth? Are the youth too sensitive to what the elders are saying? And because they're too sensitive, they're not going to get the message because they're too much in their feelings. And that's why we got to continue to have these conversations. Because some say that the community is broken. Some say that we're not going to ever get back to where we were at in the past. And because of that, some are saying that, what's the use? Let the city burn down. And once it burned down, let's build back up on that burnt down city. So what's your take? So to the 7 that are watching, I need you guys to share the content. There are many people that watch the Kosher Clinician, but you guys are not subscribed to the channel. So first of all, I want to thank you guys, the ones that are listening. I really appreciate what you guys do. You take the time out of your busy schedule to watch me. I appreciate that. You take the time out of your busy schedule to support me. I appreciate that. To my haters that are watching, thank you as well. I know some of you are watching me and you're waiting for me to fall and you're trying to steal ideas or learn from me. But in the meantime, guys, thank you for the support. I love you guys. Shout out to Top Gun. Shout out to James, the Ingram Experience. Shout out to James Turner and all the ones that always support the stream. So Alonzo Hall, how are you doing, young man? What's going on, brother?
How are you, Kosher Clinician? Thank you for bringing me up.
No doubt. Go ahead,
I
brother.
wanted to come in because I don't have as much salt and pepper as some of the gentlemen who were having the conversation. I actually didn't see the interaction between Sway in the Morning and Kevin Samuels until another content creator who's closer to his age, whom I watch, did a review on it. Upon my review, there were a lot of gentlemen. So I should preface, I'm almost 40. I'm 37 years old. So I'm a little older, but millennial.
Okay, millennial, yes, sir.
The gentlemen were upset with the way that he approached and they felt it was disrespectful. And I had to realize that there's something that I realize being a man of a certain age, when you reach a certain age, one of those things is that we don't internalize or personalize things as much as, some of the younger gentlemen. And that may be because of, rearing or what have you. But one of the things I've also realized, and this is said, all over the place, and even Kevin Samuel said it himself, you have to come in with power. And oftentimes the younger gentlemen, and you said it yourself, won't listen. And the reason that we won't listen oftentimes is because it's not forceful enough. So when Kevin Samuels came in, he came in forceful because he understood, look, when I was 23,
right,
I wasn't listening to y'all old dudes unless you smack me in the face.
I see your point. Excellent point. Right.
So that's where I feel about it.
That's an excellent point. That's an excellent point.
And in terms of the image, I wear a blazer and a t-shirt. I used to do full suit and tie. Brief story about myself. 2008, 3 days before Mother's Day, I got shot 5 times in front of my mother in Winston-Salem, North Carolina.
Oh, wow. I'm sorry to hear that, man.
No problem. Now I sell life insurance and financial services and retirement and investments, right? So this look has to be here. But
yes, sir. Right.
When I first started, it had to be full button-up suit, tie. I don't even wear anything but a blazer anymore and a t-shirt because now I'm further along.
Right.
But one of the things that kills it, and this actually happened when I was working at a dollar store. I was the store manager. And a buddy of mine came in, pants sagging. Yo, I'm trying to get a job. I was like, bro, I can't hire you. Not only will they look at you crazy,
right,
they're going to look at me crazy.
Yes, sir.
For hiring
Right.
somebody who carries himself like that.
Exactly. Right. And I think your point is well taken because the black male image is important. How you doing, Asher Adejoye? I think that's your name. How you doing, brother? You seem like you're Nigerian.
Nigerian.
How you doing? How you doing, Asher? Go ahead, brother. How would you like to add to the conversation, Asher? Go ahead, brother.
My brother on the other end right now is absolutely 100% right. Okay? It's disturbing to me when I see gentlemen who cannot present themselves in a respectable manner. And they expect that we should accord them respect when they don't even respect themselves.
Right.
It's very disturbing to me. However, we are talking about men. The older men also need to present themselves respectably to the younger men. If we older men don't present ourselves respectably, we don't have any right or any confidence to require of them to present themselves respectively. And that includes the way we speak. If we do not make an effort to articulate ourselves, there's no reason where we should be expected to respect ourselves. Articulation is part of our presentation. It's absolutely a part of our presentation. That's one. Two, when I walk around and I see young people smoking as if the smell of it, comparable to other societies, they don't smoke and smell the way we African Americans and blacks generally do.
Right.
And that is disgusting and repulsive, not just to me, but to other people of other cultures. And I'll be quiet for now.
No doubt. Thank you, man. I appreciate that. Shout out to Aaron Jordan for that.
Right? That's
$9
a deal, right? That's a deal, right?
Thank you, Aaron Jordan. I
That's
appreciate
a bet,
that.
Right? That's a deal, right? That's a deal,
Sir,
right?
as we continue to have these very powerful discussions on the importance of black male image. Awesome Dre made a good point, and I want you to piggyback on it real quick. Alonzo Hall, the advisor. Awesome Dre said, let's be real. A lot of black men will listen to white men, no problem, but can't wait to take instruction for them. But a black man says something, you buck, and I'm tired. And I agree with that. You know, they've always said that many think the white man's ice water is cold. We give our own men more hell many times than the people that don't look like us. What's your take on that, Alonzo, real quick?
So that happens, and it's this is going to be a multifold answer. One, society has made it difficult to listen to a black man, right? Everything society tells you is anything a black man says is wrong, right? That's society as a whole in America. Then you've got situations where, so even us internally, I ain't gonna listen to no another black man. He don't know nothing. He can't really lead me.
Right.
And, you know, then we've also got, you know, a system of, there is also the feeling of, I'll tell you as a millennial, you know, we feel you older guys failed us, right? We look at it like this. You know, I look at guys who are older than me in their 50s, 60s, you know, late 40s, early 50s, 60s, and I look at some of the things that I came up with, right? A lot of the guys that I came up with, part of them is the reason I got shot. They taught me how to run the streets, but not to be a man. Now, that also has to do with what we allow around us as men, because once you hit 18 as a man, ain't you a man? There's no, it just is what it is. But we also have to realize that there is a little bit of disdain in terms of we as younger generations younger than the millennials, have not seen a concrete plan or concrete evidence of our leadership or success. So they tend to be leery. They're like, well, you guys haven't really done anything. I mean, we got some Kumbaya songs, but you haven't really done anything to make a finite change in our livelihood as a whole.
Well, how can those men make livelihood or make changes overall when the women got with men that were horrible men, and they tend to categorize or overgeneralize all black men with the men that their mothers associated with? That's a thinking error called overgeneralization and catastrophizing. And so, you know, it's not on the black men. I did everything right. I didn't get women pregnant. I didn't have kids out of wedlock. I went to college. I was actually there were a lot of men like me, but they didn't get the respect that they deserved because a lot of those women were chasing after the bad boys. Only until they got older did they come to their senses. But now, is it fair that the good brothers got to be associated with the men that they got with that hurt them as women? Do you see my point?
No, I totally understand. And you know, it totally makes sense. Listen, I completely understand. You know, I'm married 5 years now, well, 4 years now.
Congrats, brother.
Been together for 13 years. 14 years. Let me get that correct before she come break my neck. But you know, in terms of that, I think what has to happen, and this didn't really happen, at least for me. I know a lot of guys in my generation, born, you know, I was born in '84. We really didn't have those role model guys who kind of came and even like hung out with us, right? Until I started getting older and involved in the streets, right? And doing the wrong things. Now, there were some guys who I'm assuming were like you, who are like, hey, bro, what are you doing? Get out of the streets. Right. We weren't trying to listen.
You weren't trying to listen. Right. Exactly.
Here's why I wasn't trying to listen.
Right. Go ahead.
I looked like this. You looked like this, right? And in our society, that's not popular, right? We need to be walking billboards. Nobody knows that this is a Michael Kors $650 jacket until I told you that, right? But when we're walking down the street and those older guys who I shouldn't have, but looked up to, were driving Mercedes-Benzes. Now, did I know that was a buy here, pay here Mercedes-Benz with 300,000 miles and it was actually a Yugo? No, because all I saw was, you know, the star, right? I didn't know the difference between an A class and a C class and an S class. All I knew was Mercedes Benz.
Right.
So those guys had the flashy toys, and that's why we listened to them. We didn't understand the depth. And again, with the women, I use an example of back in 2019. There was a gentleman who, and I do place a lot of the blame, even with the women doing what they're doing, at the men's feet. Prime example, 2019, I sat with a friend of mine, God rest the dead, who is out of Michigan, well-known guy with a magazine. He decided that at age 50, with a 17-year-old daughter who's 2 years away from college, just purchasing a $130,000 house in a King Ranch Ford at $100,000, it was best to spend $50 a week on Dogecoin as opposed to $100 a month on life insurance that would leave a large sum of money. God forbid something happened to him.
Right.
College-age daughter, etc. Well, he decided to go in Dogecoin. May 2021, he died. May 2021, his daughter, who's now 19 and college age, put up a $10,000 GoFundMe. Now she has to be stuck, right? Living in this world. She inherited the house. I'm sorry, she inherited the mortgage because he only bought the house 2 years ago. She inherited the car. I'm sorry, she inherited the car payment because he only bought the King Ranch Ford 2 years ago.
Right.
So she inherited the college savings plan that he didn't get for her. So she couldn't even pay for college. Obviously, he had nothing from his job, which was Ford Motor Company, to leave him anything. So now this daughter is left with college debt, student a mortgage, and a car loan. She's going to find that fly guy with a wave cap and a Mercedes Benz that's buy here, pay here. He's going to give her $40, unfortunately get her pregnant, and now she has a skewed vision of men because the men who are supposed to be there for her, which was her father, who was doing the right thing, didn't complete his masculinity by actually protecting everything. You see, women can look through the crack of the door. Men, we have to push the door open and see the entirety of the room.
I agree with that.
We cannot do that.
I agree with that, but I also will say that having an intact family is not the panacea to some of the things that women are doing as well. There are women that were raised in good families with good fathers, and they had good examples. And I would say, Alonzo, that the odds are better in an intact family with a masculine father. But what we're dealing with now, Alonzo, is the culture. We're fighting against the culture because when men come in to try to set standards from a heteronormative masculine perspective, many times it's fault. And so many times you can set the foundation, but if the culture is stronger than the foundation, it's still an upward battle. I do agree with you in theory that having an intact family and a father to impute wisdom into the child is the best outcome. I agree with you on that. But it's not the panacea, because I've seen times when they had good fathers and they still went astray because they were slaves to the culture. So you're correct. Asher, go ahead, brother. What do you want to add? You muted yourself. Go ahead, brother.
I think both of you are right about that. However, I'm going to disagree with Alonzo a little bit, in the sense that it's a fight, both internally and externally, for a man to become masculine, especially in today's culture. We've been raised with, and I'm talking about the Gen X's now, we're raised with the culture of a happy wife is a happy family. Whereas that is so wrong, especially if the man does not know his focus.
Right.
Samuel talks about what does a woman bring to the table. The only reason that can be answered is if the man knows what his table is being set like. And I am now in the midst of TKC, like you said, let the city burn down and rebuild it.
Right.
It can be rebuilt.
If it can be rebuilt. I totally agree with you, Asher. Right. And see, you're from a culture where patriarchal norms is respected. You're from a patriarchal country. You're from Nigeria. My roots are Nigerian. I'm about 39% Nigerian, or 40% according to African ancestry. The rest is like Cameroon, Congo, because most Americans, blacks in America are Americans of the African diaspora. So Nigerian, Cameroon, Congo, I think the rest is from Ghana and Senegal. So I have a mixture of all the different countries in Africa. But but my number one characteristic, I'm more Nigerian than anything. And, you know, those cultures have patriarchal standards where the women respect them. But let me ask you a question. Asher, you're from Nigeria. Are you guys having issues with elder respect in your country now because Western ideas are coming to Nigeria? Real quick.
It is becoming prevalent. It's not just, oh, we're having it. It is becoming prevalent. And that's because the adoption of the Western culture is also becoming prevalent for us. So the boomer generation failed us. They did not instill in us, and take a seat, you are about the same age that I am. Right. They did not instill in us the hard work. They did not instill in us the rites of passage from a boy to a man. That is something that was missing. Mm-hmm. Going back to the African American community, men started losing in the 60s and 70s when the government decided to start taking care of the women in the family. And men could not stand up against women solely relying on that. So the women have played their hand so strong now that men are having difficulty taking back the masculinity that they lost or they forgot. And again, I'm going back to what you said. We've got to burn it down and see if we can rebuild it. And if you say the boomer generation and the Gen X working together to burn it down and rebuild it.
Right.
Kevin Samuel is so right. Yes, he talks about high value men. However, if the average man can take the lessons of Kevin Samuel and demand of their women,
right?
What are you going to bring to the table for me? Or if you are in the house, what are you bringing to the table, and or are you willing to learn how to bring things to the table for me?
No, I agree with that, man. You know, I did a show, Alonzo Hall and Asher, called Men Are the Prize Catcher. Men have been conditioned to see themselves as less, but in other cultures, you're from Africa, you're from Nigeria, the women know that they have to present themselves worthy to be the prize to a man. They're not just a prize by default. They have to have intrinsic qualities and worth to get the ring. But too many men defer their power because they've never seen power in true masculinity at its highest apex. And because of that, many men come into relationships deferring power instead of demanding power, which is a byproduct of negative socialization, which in essence, as you look at it too, and within the lens of behavioral modification, it's not a homeostasis, which means in a relationship, you have the benefit and she have the benefit. If the woman is always benefiting and you're not benefiting, it's positive reinforcement for her, it's negative reinforcement for you. And American men have been negatively reinforced to accept less. That's why when they go to other countries, they don't know how to act, because they've been so conditioned to think that they're less than. And so I tell men they have more power than they know to change the trajectory of the world, but they have to demand better. And I think they demand better by changing their image. And I think if you see enough men like Alonzo Hall with his swag game on, if we see enough Kosher Clinicians with their swag game on, and we say, you know what, we're not going to let, you know, the image that Raekwon and Man have be the definitive factor for us as black men, I think you'll start seeing a different trajectory. But as of now, our women tend to love swag, tats, and the bad boy image and the fitted hats over men being masculine, or more or less personifying masculinity. And like I said, that's a value indictment on the black culture, in my opinion. It's a value indictment because other ethnic groups don't have that foolishness.
Can I speak to the table thing?
Yeah, give me 1 minute. Let me shout Top Gun out real quick for that $5 super sticker. Thank you, Top Gun. He said tone and delivery is the same critique that women have with that men. And he said that's interesting. Go ahead, Alonzo. Then I got to go, brother. Go ahead, brother.
No problem. I actually have to go myself. My phone is ringing. So one of the things that I've noticed, and I think this actually adds to a lot of what you were saying about the diminishment of masculinity. So one of the things that we as men probably shouldn't be asking is, what do you bring to the table, right? We have to realize this, and a lot of women have said this, but I don't think men have understood what's going on in this phenomenon, and it's probably helping diminish things, right? When we say, what do you bring to the table? Let's give it to women. Women are the table. I'll give them that completely and totally, but follow me, let me land the plane here, because I see you shaking your head now, and you're not letting me land the plane. And this is the difficulty with that. Women are the table, 100% unequivocally, but men are the house that has the room with which you hold that table. And that's what we've been too concerned about, is bringing stuff to the table. You are the table, baby. I'm the house that has the room that you put that table in, that dining room.
Right, I see your point. I see your point. It's just from a different perspective, but I call it the prize catcher. And Asher know what I'm talking about. In other cultures, Alonzo and Asher, men, when they would catch an animal, a wild animal, it was seen as something exotic. And many saw it as a pearl of great cost. And so they would bring it back to the village and the city, and they would celebrate because it was something hard to catch. But most men didn't deem that animal worthy using symbolism unless it was a prize of great cost, but also that man had to expel a lot of energy in order to catch it. But if it was a field rat or, a little rat or a possum, something he saw in the woods, he'll take an arrow and shoot it and take it and get it by the tail and throw it back in the woods, because it wasn't a pearl of great cost. Women of past knew that they had to have a certain level of decorum in order to get a good man. Now you got subpar women wanting top-tier men, and men are beginning to say enough of that, and they're beginning to exercise their options outside. But too many young men have been conditioned to be simps. They supplement irrational male patterns, and they don't know what their power is. And so my job is to break how men see themselves and to start presenting themselves in a way that they can get respect, demand respect, and command respect to get the kind of women they want. Real quick, and I'm going to go, guys, and I really appreciate it, Alonzo. You're an awesome brother, man. Feel free to come up in the future. Let me read what the Green Beret said. He said that, real quick.
It's a bet, right? That's a deal, right? That's a deal, right?
He said,
right? That's a deal, right? That's a deal.
You said we had to burn it down and start over. What does that look like, or how do we go about getting there? I'll let you take that real quick, Asher. Real quick, brother. Go ahead, and then we got to go.
So, how do we burn it down? Alonzo mentioned that the women are the table. No. The women are not the table. The women are to serve your purpose. The table is actually your purpose. If you do not define your purpose, you don't have a table. The women are there to serve your purpose in the house. When you are outside, you are fulfilling your purpose.
Right,
and
I see your point.
Purpose, your house is where the woman is protecting your sex, is protecting your ego. If she's not willing to protect your sex and your ego within the house, she cannot extend it to the outside.
Right. No doubt. Right. I see your point. You got my terminology. You got to protect your six, and I'm glad you're listening because you're right. She got to protect your six, man. And Shay, go ahead, Ash. Go ahead.
If she's not willing to protect your sex, she is damaging you.
Right. Your first purpose should be God, Yahweh, or whatever God you believe in. I believe in the God of the Bible. The next thing should be your purpose, and then she should come to facilitate all of that. But so many men worship the woman as their God to the point that they defer their power, and in essence, they don't respect her. That's why you got so many men dragging their knuckles, Alonzo and Asher, saying, happy wife, happy life. I got to do what my wife say, because, I'm scared. But you're a grown man. You scared of your wife? You're a man.
I'm telling you what I want. Forgive me for saying hell no. Alonzo, here's the deal for Gen Xers and the deal for subsequent generations. We've got to learn to stand up. This is how we're going to burn it down. We've got to learn to stand up and say, this is my purpose, or don't even define it. Are you willing to follow me? If you are not willing to follow me, get out of my way. If you are not willing to follow me,
right.
get out of my way.
Right. The way you let it burn, man, is letting them suffer the recompense of their error, meaning you just don't participate. You don't participate. That's how you let the city burn. You don't participate. You don't get involved. You let them go and do what they want to do and deal with the consequences.
And you don't respond to them. They accept the consequences and they become disrespectful, not just within the black community, but within the community as a whole. They become disrespectful, they can come back and we can then tell them this is how you become respectful by protecting our faith, by following us. And on that note, TKC, I'm going to bow out.
No doubt, man. Much love and blessings, man. I love you, Asher. Thank you for watching the content. Share my content with some of the African brothers, man. Are you in Nigeria?
No, actually, I'm in Dallas area.
Or in Dallas. Well, share the content with the Nigerian brothers, man, because when I do these shows, a lot of folks get mad. So share the content because we need to have these conversations with good young brothers like Alonzo Hall and yourself. And I'm honored that you came on.
By the way, TKC, this is not limited to the African American community. The African community is having the same problem. It's just not as magnified as the African community.
Oh, wow. Wow. Well, you know what, Asher? I would love to have you come back on, man, at some point. I want you to talk about the dichotomy in Africa versus America. Feel free to come back on at some point. Hit all notifications. To the people that are watching, I need you guys to hit the all notification button to the top. Many times I come on and you guys don't even know that I'm on. There are people that are watching. You have not subscribed to the channel. Subscribe to the channel. Many of you guys watch me on a regular basis, but you have not hit the all notification button to the top. And when you hit all notifications, you will see when I come on, and you guys can share the content and we can have a conversation. So this has been a good conversation. So thank you, Asher. And Alonzo, before we go, brother, what would you like to say before we sign off, brother?
Man, thank you for having me on. Thank you for having conversations like this. Spaces like this are necessary. Conversations like this are necessary. And I think stuff like this is evergreen content. One of the ways that I think we can help burn it down and rebuild it is simply having these conversations, right? Because my 21-year-old nephew and my 10-year-old nephew, in 10 years, when he comes back on YouTube and looks at this and says videos from 10 years ago, he's going to see his uncle dressed a certain way. Yeah, I might have my Cornel West hair and not, the perfectly coiffed edge up, what have you. But he sees me looking like a man. And this is what men look like across the world. One last thing I want to mention, because like I said, I got shot 5 times. They call me 25 cents instead of 50 because I got shot half as many times. But I use this because
I like that.
In Black America, we tend to look up to the gangsta, not the gangster, ER. And if you go globally and you ask people in other countries, what's the image you get when you think of a gangster? They're going to say a man in a tailored business suit who's making some decisions and makes the decisions about the drugs and guns and murders, not the guy who's out there in a sweatsuit with a turn-fitted cap and a belt half off his butt and a logo shirt that says Gucci, so he's wearing Gucci, so that's it. But my thing is work in progress every day and see success. And ladies and gentlemen, when people challenge you, they don't challenge you to challenge you, but they challenge you to challenge you. Accept the challenge. Salute.
Accept the challenge, no doubt, man. Much love, young buck. I like that swag, man. You from North Carolina? You from Winston-Salem?
No. I'm from Connecticut, born and raised, but I'm a New York dude. But I was hanging out in Winston. I'm used to, unfortunately, before I became a man, I was running around like a little boy doing, kicking up dust, trying to sell drugs and all this other nonsense bro, like selling insurance. I sell insurance. I have my PTIN, which is my prepares tax identification number. So I can prepare taxes in all 50 states.
Good, brother. Good,
life, health, accidental, property and casualty, investments. And I also have my New York State real estate license.
Excellent.
Wife works for the IRS. No doubt. So I go and I talk to young men and I'm like, look, man, I'll give you an example. Friday, I had a woman send me a check in my name for $15,000. I know homeboys who, I talk about life insurance, and I got homeboys who've been selling cocaine since I was 16, haven't sold a kilo. But if you Google Colombian cocaine cartel life insurance, you'll find a December 10th, 2002 New York Times article that shows 5 men, Colombian cocaine cartel members, got indicted for hiding $80 million of drug money in life insurance. This is the stuff that we're not taught. So conversations like this are wonderful.
No doubt, man. And listen, man, much love and blessings, young buck. I'm going to sign off, man. Much love and blessings. Share the content. How did you find out about the channel? Well, anyway, he popped off. But anyway, guys, your mental health is important. And it's important, guys, that you take care of yourself and learn to understand how mental wellness and the lack of mental wellness play a major role on your psyche. So we're about to sign off, guys. This has been another good show talking about the importance of the black male image, and also Kevin Salmon. If you have not bought clothes from G Hustle Wear, go tell my man Demetrius Williams that I sent you to get some G Hustle Wear, and hopefully we can get an affiliate link. And if you buy his product, I'll get some money, because G Hustle Wear is where it's at. And you know, he has some good urban gear that can help you get your swag on after you wear your suit. So we're signing off.
Tell them run it off. I wake up. Yeah. I wake up, flex, I'm down now. Check, no drip, this wet. Tell them run it up. No sleep, no rest. Might crash, might wreck, but first I stretch. Tell them run it up. I wake up, flex, I'm down now. Check, no drip, this wet. Tell them run it up. No sleep, no rest. Might crash, might wreck, but first I stretch. Tell them run it up. 9 out of 10 roll through my hands, I'm by my lonely. Turn to a savage, now my baby wants to hold me. I love my fans, don't need no friends, I got my homies.
Victim of brokenness and despair. A broken man is a hopeless man, and a hopeless man is a very dangerous man. Many times, many of you young men that are listening come from homes that are very toxic and very dysfunctional. And because of that, many of you have deferred your power in many ways, to the point it's led over into your social life, and many times led over into your relationships. If you guys are dealing with mental health pathologies, conscious and unconscious, come see me at kosherclinician@gmail.com. That's kosherclinician@gmail.com. It's important that you deal with your mental health in order to be a better person for yourself, your loved ones, and also your community. But because mental health is often stigmatized, many of you often suffer in silence. Don't be a victim in silence. And see me once again at kosherclinician@gmail.com. And I need you guys to remember this. If it ain't 7, it ain't kosher. If it ain't kosher, it ain't right. There are 7 steps that a man must go through in order to become an optimized male. And male mental health is one of those elements that's paramount to the functioning of a man. Be well.